Chapter 1196. The Yen family's ancestral land was destroyed. Aside from the women and children, all the other warriors were killed. The Yen family was completely destroyed. Unless Yen Tiangang returned to the Nine Realms, the Yen family would never rise again. All the statues and altars of Yen Tiangang in the divine imperial universe were destroyed. The Hua family tried their best to eliminate the influence of the Yen family on the divine imperial universe. If anyone dared to side with the Yen clan or plotted to avenge the Yen clan, their entire clan would be annihilated once they were discovered. Under the pressure, all civilians of the divine imperial universe knew that the era of the Yen family was over and the era of the Hua family had come. Half a month later, the divine imperial city at the center of the divine imperial universe suddenly vanished. The only trace of the Yen family in the divine imperial universe was erased. Many did not know how the divine imperial city disappeared, but they knew it must have something to do with Lu Li. Lu Li and Lu Renhuang, who had taken over the divine imperial city, went to the prison of gold. The deaf Taoist, Blazing Hua, and Chen Tianxian went to the Earth Imperial Universe to help the Lu family stabilize the Earth Imperial Universe. Lu Li asked Chen Jin to bring hundreds of human sovereign realm warriors to reinforce the main force of the Heaven Reverse Universe. He used subsidiary bodies followed them. Patriarch of Law Enforcement and Jiang Qiling were both at the semi-god realm, and Chen Jin had brought hundreds of human sovereign realm warriors with him. Naturally, there wouldn't be any problems along the way. They had arrived at the prison of water and would arrive at the prison of gold in about 20 days. When they learned that Lu Li was welcoming disciples of the Lu family at the entrance to the prison of gold, many families swarmed to Lu Li's side to welcome the Lu family on behalf of the major families. Many families brought all kinds of gifts, and some even sent out all kinds of craftsmen to help the Lu family build a castle and a place to live. Circumstances spoke louder than men. Lu Li was the most powerful warrior in the 9 universes, and this was a universally acknowledged fact. Though the Lu family was not strong, Lu Li alone could defeat all the families in the 9 universes. What was more, the Hua and Chen families had joined the alliance. Lu Li could wipe out a family with a single word. Many families had invaded the 9 universes in the past. Though Lu Li promised to let bygones be bygones, who could tell when Lu Li would be unhappy and seek trouble with them again? Now that the Lu family had moved here, it was the best opportunity. One would not slap a smiling face. Now that he had served the Lu family well and built a good relationship with the Lu family, Lu Li would not be able to turn against him in the future. Many warriors were mobilized to the Earth Imperial Universe. Lu Li had planned to let the Lu family live in the divine imperial city. However, Chen Tianxian and Blazing Hua worked together to build a brand new city in the center of the Earth Imperial Universe. Many families of the Earth Imperial Universe swarmed over. Their craftsmen were mobilized. A city was built. Many beautiful castles were built. Many teleportation formations were built. Countless materials were mobilized. All the clans sent at least 5 million people just to help the Lu clan build the city. In just 10 days, the construction of the city had been completed. All kinds of items had been transferred over and arranged, and all of the items were brand new. The streets were cleaned. Guards were on duty in the city. Maids were waiting outside every castle, waiting for the civilians of the Heaven Reverse Universe to move in. 20 days later, at the connection point between the water prison and the gold prison, silhouettes appeared one after another. Chen Jin came out first, then Patriarch of Law Enforcement, Lu Jingyang, and then Jiang Qiling, by Qiushue and by Xiaoshuang. They came out one after another. This time, only one group of warriors came from the Heaven Reverse Universe. The second and third groups would arrive after Lu Li settled down. That being said, the first group had come as well. There were at least 1,000 warriors in total. Thousands of warriors came out, and they were all taken aback by what they saw. In front of them was a dense crowd of powerful warriors. Even the weakest among them was at the human sovereign realm. There were quite a number of Earth Immortal Realm and Semi-God Realm warriors. The warriors stood in an orderly manner, like a disciplined army. Patriarch of Law Enforcement and the others sensed many powerful warriors. They thought powerful warriors were waiting to ambush them. Not only Patriarch of Law Enforcement, but those who came out later were also frightened. Anyone who entered the prison of gold from the prison of water would be frightened out of instinct when they saw tens of thousands of warriors standing there quietly. Many of them were as powerful as dragons and elephants. They would think they were ambushed. However, when they saw a white-haired young man in a cyan robe standing at the front, they were relieved. Bai Qiuxue, Bai Xiaoshuang, and Jiang Qiling burst into tears when they saw Lu Li. Bai Xiaoshuang had no time to worry about anything else. She dashed toward Lu Li, crying, "Welcome, lords of the Lu family. Welcome, my 3 wives." Before Bai Xiaoshuang could come over, the tens of thousands of warriors behind her had dropped to one knee and shouted. Bai Xiaoshuang was too scared to go over. Lu Li smiled. He dashed to Bai Xiaoshuang and hugged her. "Good." Patriarch of Law Enforcement, Lu Xingyang, and Jiang Tianshun looked at each other. Their eyes were filled with excitement and pride. So many powerful warriors had come to greet them. Among those on their knees, some were at the peak of the semi-god realm. Patriarch of Law Enforcement and Lu Xingyang felt proud and exclaimed at the same time. Lu Renhuang walked over and greeted Patriarch of Law Enforcement, Lu Xingyang, and the others. They exclaimed again. Even though Lu Renhuang had restrained his energy, even Patriarch of Law Enforcement could feel the pressure. Lu Renhuang's abilities must be strong. Lu Li came with Bai Xiaoshuang. He hugged Jiang Qiling and Bai Qiuxue and chatted with Patriarch of Law Enforcement and the others. For a moment, the place was filled with excitement. When a man achieved greatness, so did his friends and family. Many warriors of the 9 universes exclaimed that warriors of the Lu family and the Heaven Reverse universe were too weak. In the 9 universes, the Lu family could only be regarded as a middle-level family. Now, all the family patriarchs of the 9 universes were on their knees. Warriors of the Heaven Reverse universe exclaimed even more. In their eyes, they were filled with excitement. Seeing so many powerful warriors on their knees, they felt they had made the right decision to come to the Earth Imperial Universe. Hiding in the Heaven Reverse universe was like a frog at the bottom of a well. They could be destroyed at any time. Only when they had a firm foothold in the 9 universes could they be considered powerful. After some small talk, Lu Renhuang's interspatial ring glowed. A small black city emerged. He raised his hand high into the sky, and the small city gradually grew larger until it covered the entire sky around it. The Divine Imperial City. Many people were excited. This was a city that was indestructible and unbreakable. It had protected the Yen family for hundreds of thousands of years. Now it belonged to the Lu family. Let's go in. There is still a long way to go to the Earth Imperial Universe. You can take the city to the Earth Imperial Universe. Lu Li waved his hand and entered the city with Jiang Qiling, Bai Qiuxue, and Bai Xiaoshuang. The ruins in the city had been cleaned up. Bodies and bloodstains were cleaned up. But the destroyed buildings were not rebuilt. They could be rebuilt in the future. Thousands of warriors of the Heaven Reverse universe flew up and entered the Divine Imperial City. Managers of the Hua family and the Chun family went in as well. But the other families of the 9 universes were not allowed in. Who dared to enter without Lu Li's permission? Whoosh, the Divine Imperial City flew away at a moderate speed. It was as fast as the peak of the Earth Immortal Realm. The city with a radius of 30 miles moved away like a mountain. Chapter 1197. The Divine Imperial City landed on the newly built city of the Earth Imperial Universe. Thousands of warriors of the Heaven Reverse universe flew out from the city and were dumbfounded. A brand new city stood on the ground. This city was at least 10 times larger than the demon-slaying city, covering an area with a radius of 100 miles. Hundreds of millions of people could live in the city, and it would not be crowded. Most importantly, everything in this city was new. The city walls were newly built, and the streets inside were wide and orderly. Huge castles were lined up in a row, and the square itself took up a radius of several miles. Countless teleportation formations shone faintly on it. All the castles had ready-made goods. Guards were on duty on the street. In many castles, maids and servants were waiting on their knees. Even Luli was taken aback by the city. Blazing Hua and Chen Tianxian had given him a big gift, which made Luli feel proud. "Lord, we haven't named the city yet. We are waiting for you," Chen Tianxian said to Luli with a smile. Luli, patriarch of law enforcement, Lu Renhuang and Lu Xingyang looked at each other and said, "Let's call it the City of Divine Imperial City." Lu Renhuang and patriarch of law enforcement preferred the City of Mystic Armor. After all, that was where the Lu family started. Building a new city of mystic armor in the Earth Imperial Universe was a sign that the Lu family had reached a higher level as well. Unfortunately, Luli was not interested in the city of mystic armor. That city brought him many bad memories. Therefore, he named it the City of Great Land to represent the people of the Great Land standing proudly in the Earth Imperial Universe. The Great Land is great. Grand Master, the City of Great Land is wonderful. Yes, we are the people of the Great Land. This is the City of Great Land. Young Master Li is warning us not to forget our roots and to always remember our homeland. Grand Master, you have great foresight. I admire you. Many people chimed in at once. They had their own way of talking. If Luli named it Dog Blood City, a lot of people would agree and say it was a good name. Grandpa, help them settle down. Go to Blazing Hua and Chen Tianxian if you need anything. Luli waved his hand. Lu Xingyang and Jiang Tianshun, patriarch of law enforcement, and the others went to settle down. Luli, Jiang Qiling, Bai Xiaoshuang, and Bai Qiushua entered the city. Looking at the empty city, Luli asked with a frown, "Father, can't the city be smaller?" Luli planned to use the Relic City as a place for the Lu family to settle down. Other families were not allowed to live in the city. This would ensure the absolute safety of the Divine City. At the very least, there wouldn't be traitors colluding with each other to break into the Divine City. Sure. Lu Renhuang nodded and said, "A city can be as small as 1 mile in radius and as big as 30 miles. Then make it smaller." Luli thought about it and said, "Let's make it one with a radius of 1.5 miles. We will build some castles and manors in there, and let all the disciples of the Lu family live there. Don't let the Divine City float in mid-air. There's a huge mountain in the north of the city. Let's just place it on top of the mountain. Don't move it if there's nothing important in the future." Alright. Lu Renhuang also thought it was too conspicuous to float in the air. The Lu family's priority was to keep a low profile. The population of the Lu family was small. It would take at least hundreds of years for the Lu family to develop into a major family like the Chen family or the Hua family. Lu Renhuang used psychic power to check. The mountain to the north was a good choice. It was not far from the City of Great Land, less than 3 miles away. Powerful warriors could arrive in an instant. The mountain was steep with lush greenery. On the other side of the mountain was a river. There was a mountain, a river, and a city. It was suitable for long-term residence. Buzzing. The Relic City moved slowly toward the mountain. Lu Renhuang flew out, took out a saber and swung it at the top of the mountain. A long, narrow, and sharp blade whizzed out, and the blade directly flattened the mountain peak. Lu Renhuang made the Relic City smaller until it was 1.5 miles in radius, right at the top of the mountain. Of course, many of the flowers and trees nearby had been destroyed, and the river below had also been blocked, turning the originally beautiful scenery into an ugly one. That being said, this was not a problem. Lu Renhuang just had to find some people to repair it. Nice, nice. Lu Li flew out with Jiang Qiling and the others. Bai Xiaoshuang took a look and clapped her hands in delight. This is a nice place. Darling, are we going to live here from now on? Lu Li nodded. Jiang Qiling and Bai Qiushue's eyes dimmed down. This place would be where they would live in the future, but not where Lu Li would live. Soon, Lu Li would leave them and explore the divinity on his own. Lu Li noticed their expressions. He did not say anything. After some thoughts he said, Father, I will leave this place to you. I will show around with Qiling, Qiushue and Shuang'er. If there are any problems, go to Blazing Hua, the Deaf Taoist, and Chen Tianxian. I will leave some subsidiary bodies of He Yu in the Relic City. Send me a message if you need anything. Lu Li had never been a fan of trivial matters. The Earth Imperial Universe was stable. Nobody in the 9 universes dared to provoke him and the Lu family. Therefore, he didn't want to worry about other things. As a matter of fact, the Mage Imperial Universe and the 5 small universes were not in a stable state. Now that the Hua family had left the Hippocampus universe, the other families would fight for it. The Chun family of the Mage Imperial Universe was gone. Yen Tiangang killed many semi-god realm warriors of that family that once occupied the Mage Imperial Universe. It would be difficult for the Chun family to take over the Mage Imperial Universe. There would be some turbulence. Lu Li didn't want to worry about these things. He even asked Blazing Hua to send a message. He only wanted the Earth Imperial Universe and nothing else. As long as he and the Lu family were not provoked, he would not interfere with the other universes. Those that provoked him would have to bear the consequences. Lu Li believed that when his words were spread out, the other universes would be stirred up. For the time being, no families would dare to show off. But as time went on, there would be another war. Lu Li had the ability to conquer the 9 universes and even unify them. But who would guard such a large territory? Who would manage it? A man who was never content would be like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. Greed could kill. If he conquered the 9 universes, he would bring the Lu family into an abyss of eternal doom unless he chose not to ascend to the divinity and guard the 9 universes for thousands of years. How could he not ascend to the divinity? Lu Li himself was eager to explore the divinity and fight for hegemony there, let alone Lu Li. Warriors could never stop. They had to pursue the strongest power and aspire to stand at the peak. Without ambition, one could only lead a mediocre life and die an ordinary death. Ever since Lu Li left the Delong tribe, he had never stopped pursuing power. Today, he could stand at this height only because he killed his way up. It had been so many years. He had gotten used to this life. If he were to stop and live in peace for the rest of his life, Lu Li wondered if he would lose his mind at the thought that he still had thousands of years to live. Let's go. After a while, Lu Li smiled at the twins. He decided to spend a month or 2 with them and then go to the Prison of Wind to cultivate to become an immortal. Last time in the Prison of Wind, he was triggered in the valley. If he had not been interrupted that time, he would have broken through to the God realm by now if he had continued to cultivate. Chapter 1198. He wandered around the Earth Imperial Universe with Jiang Qiling, Bai Xiaoshuang, and Bai Qiushue for a month. Gradually, the Lu family had gained a foothold in the Earth Imperial Universe. With the help of Blazing Hua, the Deaf Taoist, and Chen Tianxian, nothing could go wrong. Lu Renhuang didn't want to get involved in trivial family affairs. However, he was the most powerful warrior in the Lu family apart from Lu Li. If Lu Li didn't manage the family affairs, Lu Renhuang wouldn't be able to control the situation and others would look down on the Lu family. As soon as the Lu family arrived, the other families of the Earth Imperial Universe expressed their willingness to follow Lu family's lead. 2 family patriarchs did not come as soon as possible. The Deaf Taoist went over in person and killed their family patriarchs, which shocked all the families in the Earth Imperial Universe. Even though many families had expressed their willingness to surrender, Lu Renhuang and Patriarch of Law Enforcement did not accept them right away. This was because these families had occupied many blessed lands, and the treasured lands left behind by the Jun family and the Hao family had been divided among the major families. On the surface, the Lu family was in charge of the Earth Imperial Universe. However, over 80% of the blessed lands and resources in the Earth Imperial Universe were occupied by other families. What was the point of the Lu family occupying the Earth Imperial Universe if they could not control most of the resources and lands? What could he do to win over the families and powerful warriors that sided with the Lu family? What could he do to appease the families that came from the Heaven Reverse Universe? Therefore, even though the families of the Earth Imperial Universe were humble and had repeatedly stated that they would follow the Lu family's lead, Lu Renhuang and Patriarch of Law Enforcement paid them no heed. The law enforcement elder began to secretly investigate the heavenly paradises and resources that originally belonged to the Jun and Hao families. These were things that the great families had to spit out. If anyone dared to embezzle it, they could only raise their butcher knives and slaughter their way over. The Earth Imperial Universe didn't have many powerful warriors. Only a dozen families had semi-god realm warriors, and they were not particularly strong. Lu Renhuang alone was enough to suppress the entire Earth Imperial Universe, not to mention that Lu Li had asked the Deaf Taoist, Blazing Hua, and Chen Tianxian to protect the city of Great Land. After he had a clear understanding of the situation, Lu Renhuang sent out an announcement, asking all the families to hand over all the blessed lands of the Jun family and the Hao family that they had secretly occupied. If they did not do so, they would have to face the consequences. As the news spread out, all the families in the Earth Imperial Universe were in an uproar. After the Hao family was wiped out, some blessed lands were occupied by other families. After the Jun family retreated, they naturally couldn't just watch as so many treasured lands were occupied. Asking them to spit out the fat meat that they had already eaten? This was even worse than killing them. All the clans had a secret discussion and decided to hand over a small portion of their blessed lands and resources, but they would not hand over the bigger portion. They didn't believe that the Lu clan would dare to start a massacre when they had just arrived and had yet to stabilize their foundation. Offending all the families and forces of the Earth Imperial Universe would put the Lu family in a difficult position in the future. Lu family could not kill all the civilians of the Earth Imperial Universe, could they? Of course, there were also some cowardly clans that immediately handed over the blessed lands and resources that they occupied. They also sincerely pleaded guilty and begged the Lu clan to forgive them. When Lu Li came back with Jiang Qiling, Bai Qiushue and Bai Xiaoshuang, the deadline given by the Lu family had just expired. The great clans had only handed over 30% of their blessed lands and resources. There were still many famous blessed lands and resources that they continued to occupy. Deaf Taoist. The Lu family was having a meeting, discussing whether or not they should take action. Lu Li didn't ask for the others' opinion. He gave an order to the Deaf Taoist, "Tell them that I have said it. If they cannot hand over the blessed lands and resources in one day, they will face the consequences. In one day, I will tally up the families that have not done so. Bring someone with you and wipe them all out." Lu Li's words had set the tone for the Lu family's meeting. His method was brutal and cruel. One day's time was a little too short. There was no time for those families to consider or buffer at all. Lu Xingyang and great-grandfather Five frowned and said with concern, "Lu Li, aren't you being too aggressive? You will give the civilians of the Earth Imperial Universe a brutal image. You will not win the hearts of the people. Without the hearts of the people, it will be troublesome for us to gain a firm foothold in the Earth Imperial Universe." Lu Li waved his hand and told the Deaf Taoist to carry out his order. Lu Li explained with a smile, "Grandpa, we are fighting for interests with the families of the Earth Imperial Universe. We are snatching meat from their mouth. No matter what we do, they will not be happy. How family and June family are in decline, but the Earth Imperial Universe is stable and impenetrable. It is difficult to win the hearts of the people. It will take decades or even hundreds of years. If so, then let's just disrupt the structure of the Earth Imperial Universe. Reshuffle the cards and turn the Earth Imperial Universe into a blank piece of paper. In the future, you can arrange it however you want. Lu Renhuang nodded and said, Father, Lu Li is right. Those families do not listen to us. They pretend to obey but secretly oppose us. Leaving them alive will only bring trouble. In one day, the deaf Taoist and I will wipe out all the forces that are not convinced. Lu Li thought about it and added, let Chen Tianxian and Blazing Hua go as well. Either they don't move, or they move as fast as they can and wipe out the families of the Earth Imperial Universe. Lu Li's words were spread out. Many families of the Earth Imperial Universe were in a state of panic. After all, this was Lu Li's message. It was almost an ultimatum. If they still did not know what was good for them, they might be wiped out. However, Lu Li did not give them enough time. In one day, many families gathered their patriarchs for a meeting and communicated with other families. Before they could come up with a plan, before they could come up with a good plan or make up their minds, the time had passed. However, some families were scared. They gave up all the blessed lands and resources that they had occupied and admitted their guilt. They would be at the mercy of the Lu family. A day had passed. The deaf Taoist, Chen Tianxian, and Blazing Hua had counted the families that were still occupying the land. They made a list and began to take action. The deaf Taoist and Lu Renhuang were in a team, and Blazing Hua and Chen Tianxian were in another team. They each led several semi-god realm warriors and teleported away. As soon as they arrived, they did not wait for explanations from the other families. They killed all the family patriarchs and patriarchs of the two families. All warriors above the human sovereign realm were killed. The news spread out in an instant. The remaining families were stunned. They sent a message to the city of Great Land at once, stating that they would give up all the lands and even some of the lands that belonged to their own families. The Lu family did not respond. Lu Renhuang, Blazing Hua, and the others teleported away. They carried out a bloodbath. The entire Earth Imperial Universe was drowned in blood. The Lu family would not accept their surrender. The remaining families had to fight to the death. Of course, some families began to run away. They snuck into small worlds, planning to wait until their families grew stronger before they came back. Lu Li stayed at the city of Great Land for half a month. All the families on the list were either wiped out or fled. Most forces in the Earth Imperial Universe were reshuffled. Most of the blessed lands and resources were controlled by the Lu family. Okay. When Lu Renhuang came back, Lu Li discussed with the others and bid farewell to Bai Qiuxue, Jiang Qiling, and Bai Xiaoshuang. Chapter 1199. Inside the Prison of Wind, Lu Li stood here again. Last time, he was inspired here. He closed his eyes and did not control his body. He let the wind blow him around in midair. The wind here was so strong that Lu Li was lifted up into the air along with the sand. Gradually, he became one with the sand and became a grain of sand. Bang! Lu Li was blown out of the valley and smashed into the wilderness. He was covered in sand, including his robe and hair. He had become a sandman. Whoosh! He flew up and went to the other side of the valley. Then, he became a grain of sand and was blown from one end of the valley to the other. Eventually, he fell into the wilderness. Once, twice, 10 times, 50 times. For the 67th time, Lu Li didn't fly away. Instead, he sat on the ground with his legs crossed. The obscure feeling in his mind was becoming clearer. He had found an opportunity to integrate them. The sand can be integrated because of the wind. Under the high speed of the wind, the sand is crushed and then integrated. This is like the situation in the Earth Imperial Universe. Without destruction there can be no construction. Only by disrupting and reorganizing the stable situation can the sand be integrated. Luli grabbed a ball of sand in his hand. He squeezed it and it turned into powder. This ball of sand was made up of many grains of sand. Under the high speed, the sand was crushed into powder by the strong wind and then merged into a huge ball of sand. At this moment, Luli had a clear direction. The reason why he could not integrate the 12 profound meanings was that he had learned all the 12 profound meanings and they had taken shape. The 12 profound meanings were like the families in the Earth Imperial Universe. To completely control the situation in the Earth Imperial Universe, the best way was to change the pattern of destruction of the families and reshuffle the cards. The 12 profound meanings were like 12 hemp ropes of different lengths and thicknesses. To twist them together, the 12 ropes must be separated first. Only in this way could it be rewoven into a thick and complete giant rope. The force of wind is the source of everything, the foundation of wind-related profound meaning. Emperor of Heaven Reverse said that to learn the origin fundamental meaning, the most important thing is origin and truth. I have almost understood the word origin. But how do I understand the word truth? There was a question in Luli's mind, but he couldn't figure it out. Luli decided to just ignore it. First, he had to break down the 12 profound meanings and fuse them together. Whoosh whoosh, the wind was raging and the sand was swept over. The sand fell on Luli and covered him up. Eventually, he became a sandman. Time passed quickly like flowing water. Cultivation knew no time. 1 month later, the 12 profound meanings showed signs of beginning to merge. Everything was difficult at the beginning. As long as one found the right direction, everything would be smooth sailing from there. 3 months later, the initial integration of the 12 profound meanings was successful. Luli was relieved. He estimated that in a month or two at most, the 12 profound meanings would be completely integrated. Once he successfully comprehended the origin true meaning, he should be able to break through to the God realm. However, after another 2 months, Luli opened his eyes in shock. He couldn't believe what he had just seen. Just now, he had completely fused 12 profundities and comprehended a wind true meaning. However, he did not feel like he was about to make a breakthrough. He did not have any intention of advancing to the God realm. He had comprehended the true meaning of the origin, but was unable to break through to the divine realm? What had gone wrong? A glint of fear and confusion rose in Luli's eyes. He had learned something about becoming an immortal from the deaf Taoist, Chen Tianxian and Blazing Hu. That was why he was panicking. Throughout history, whenever someone in the 9 universes reached the God realm, there would be abnormal phenomena in heaven and earth nearby. Xian Qi in heaven and earth would have unusual movements. That was because reaching the God realm was truly against nature. Heaven and earth would be affected, and the laws in heaven and earth would react accordingly. What was more, after reaching the God realm, heaven and earth would grant a special energy that could help the warrior transform his body, build an immortal body, and forge a soul. However, when Luli learned the origin true meaning, heaven and earth did not react. Heaven and earth did not grant him any energy, nor did it help him transform his body or forge his soul. Luli had believed that since he had obtained the map of Emperor Hung, reaching the God realm was a sure thing. Not only him, but almost everyone in the 9 universes believed that it would be easy for him to reach the God realm. After all, he was only in his 30s, and he had obtained the legacy of Emperor Hung. Wouldn't it be easy for him to reach the God realm? But now Luli felt the heavens were playing a joke on him. Learning the origin true meaning was equal to reaching the God realm. However, heaven and earth did not react. Could it be that he could never reach the God realm in this lifetime? No, something must be wrong. Luli suddenly stood up. He used his Xian energy to shake off all the wind and sand on him. He gazed into the sky in the distance. After the time for one incense stick to burn, he thought of something. Origin, true meaning. Everything has an origin. Vacuum and illusion. The key lies in the two words, origin and truth. Luli remembered the words left by Emperor of Heaven reversed. Suddenly, he understood. He could only understand the word origin but not truth. This might be the problem. Vacuum and illusion. Truth and falsehood are hard to tell. Falsehood is boundless, Luli murmured. Was it an illusion that he had learned the origin true meaning? Was it because he had not learned it completely? Was everything he had learned an illusion? Was everything he had sensed false? Was he not in touch with the true meaning of the origin true meaning? What is truth? What is falsehood? What if the profound meaning I learned is false? Then what else is true in the world? Luli was confused. He moved slowly and began to walk around. He had shaken off the sand, but his robe and hair were still messy. Plus, he hadn't shaved for months. He looked like a down-and-out tramp, a lunatic who had lost his mind. He would stop from time to time and murmur to himself. Sometimes, he would find a place to sit down. If Jiang Qiling and the others were here, they wouldn't be able to tell it was Luli. 5 days, 10 days. Luli felt he had lost his mind. Looking at the world in front of him, he found it hard to tell what was real and what was not. He could not tell if he was in a dream or reality. He had worked so hard to learn the profound meaning. He clearly felt that the origin true meaning he had learned was fake. At this moment, he felt that everything in this world was fake. Half a month later, Luli came to the foot of a hill. He didn't even know where he was. He had been in a daze. At the foot of this small mountain, he suddenly stopped in his tracks. This was because he discovered that there was actually a small blade of grass growing under a piece of rock. In the prison of wind, deserts were everywhere. There were hardly any plants. But here there was a grass. Moreover, this green grass actually withstood the pressure of the stone and grew little by little. He looked at the grass for a moment, and then looked at the Gobi Desert and the desert in the distance. The world was desolate and bleak. A single blade of grass here was like a green dot in a sea of flowers, giving people a feeling of sudden enlightenment and brightening their eyes. Truth and falsehood, falsehood and falsehood, truth in truth and falsehood in falsehood? At this moment, Luli's confused eyes suddenly became clear and determined. He paused for a moment. Then, he was in high spirit. He threw his head back and laughed. Ha ha ha! God, you did it on purpose. You stopped me at the last step so that I could not tell the truth from the falsehood. You made me lose myself and fall into self-doubt so that I could never take the last step. I have learned the origin true meaning. Why don't you use divine energy to help me build my body and build my soul? Boom, 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 boom. Chapter 1200. This was the last test given to those who were trying to become immortals. It was a psychological test. Without a firm mind and strong willpower, natural laws would not approve of a warrior. If a warrior could not tell the truth from the falsehood and did not have the determination to rise to the challenge, he would die easily even if he became an immortal. Origin and truth were the key. If Luli could not understand the two, he would not be able to reach the immortal realm. Now everything was falling into place. Boom, 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 boom. Up in the sky, thunder roared. Xian Qi in heaven and earth in the prison of wind gathered here. Thunderbolts were glaring in the sky, but they did not come down at once. Luli looked up with pride. He saw thunderbolts of 5 different colors in the sky. All of a sudden, he understood that the thunderbolts must have come from the prison of thunder. The thunderbolts were not there to help him get through the trial, but to help him solidify his immortal body. His body had been refined by thunderbolt. After he solidified his immortal body, it would be a piece of cake for him to go through the prison of thunder. He might be immune to thunderbolts now. Swish, swish, Xian Qi in heaven and earth gathered in the sky above his head, growing thicker and thicker. Average warriors would be frightened. If there was an explosion of so much xian qi in heaven and earth, the space nearby would be torn apart and all living beings would be torn apart. Lu Li remained calm. He stood where he was, waiting for his body and soul to transform and for him to take the final step. Boom! Finally, the thunderbolts in the sky moved. First, a silver thunderbolt came down directly at Lu Li. Lu Li did not dodge. He did not even release the relic armor or the dragon armor. He just stood where he was and let the thunderbolt strike. Just as I thought. When the thunderbolt entered Lu Li's body, he noticed something different. This thunderbolt was different from regular thunderbolt. There was a special kind of energy contained in it. As the energy entered his body, he could see that his body was growing stronger. His soul was solidified as well, and it was transforming slowly. Boom! Another thunderbolt came down. Lu Li closed his eyes and looked inside his body, waiting for his body to grow and for his soul to solidify. When the wind prison suddenly changed, the entire primal chaos purgatory had a violent space fluctuation. The Blood Emperor and the Star Emperor, who were in the stone forest in the Soul Prison, were alerted immediately. The two of them were playing chess in the wooden hut. Star Emperor had just picked up a chess piece, but he didn't put it down. He smiled and said, "Blood Emperor, I won again this time." The Blood Emperor looked up into the sky in astonishment. He then said with envy, "Comparisons are odious. I've lived for 2,000 years and worked hard for 2,000 years. Yet, I can't compare to him who has cultivated for tens of years." Hee. Astro Emperor smiled an enigmatic smile and said, "Everything is predestined." Lu Li was destined to lead an ordinary life. But the arrival of Lu Ling and that silver dragon changed his life. Without that silver dragon, he wouldn't have been able to obtain Emperor Heng's inheritance, and he wouldn't have been able to reach where he is today. Everything is fate. The Blood Emperor sighed, his eyes filled with desolation. He looked up at the spatial zone in the sky and said, "I have worked very hard in my life and have had many opportunities. It's a pity that I am fated to not be able to take the final step. I will not be able to go to the vast and boundless divine world." Astro Emperor put down a chess piece and said with a mysterious smile, "As a matter of fact, it's not certain." "Really?" The Blood Emperor's eyes became sharp. He was excited and his breaths were short. He looked at Astro Emperor nervously and said, "Astro Emperor, what do you mean? Could it be that my fate can be reversed?" "Maybe." Astro Emperor stroked his beard and said, "Lu Ling's arrival has changed many lives. Maybe she will change yours as well. This is a secret that I cannot tell you. You will know in the future." Phew, Blood Emperor took a deep breath and exhaled. He had calmed down, but the excitement in his eyes was still evident. Astro Emperor would never say something he was not sure about. So, he still had a chance? In addition to the Blood Emperor and Astro Emperor, many warriors hiding in the prison of ice, wind, prison of darkness and prison of soul were alarmed as well. The space was shaking and the xian qi in heaven and earth was fluctuating. It was impossible for them not to be alarmed. Many people were slightly stunned and confused at first, but then envy and jealousy appeared on their faces. Many of them were stuck at the last step. They had been cultivating for hundreds or even thousands of years. They had dreamt about taking the last step many times but could not. After so many years, someone had finally become an immortal. For many, this was both an inspiration and a blow. All kinds of feelings welled up in their hearts. The warriors cultivating in the prison of wind flew toward Lu Li at once. They wanted to witness the grand occasion of becoming an immortal and take the opportunity to observe. Maybe it could inspire their own cultivation. The 9 universes were shaken as well. The nearby universes were trembling. At first, many warriors were confused, but soon they understood. It is done. The Deaf Taoist was Lu Li's spiritual beast. He sensed it at once and sent the news to Lu Renhuang, Lu Jingyang, and Patriarch of Law Enforcement. The deaf Taoist was overjoyed. Lu Li had made the breakthrough, which meant that he could go to the divinity. The deaf Taoist had not fully recovered, and the 9 universes did not have the mystical materials he needed. Therefore, if he were to go to the prison of thunder, he would die for sure. Now that Lu Li had made the breakthrough and the deaf Taoist was Lu Li's spiritual beast, the deaf Taoist could go to the divinity and find a way back to the region of doom. In this way, the deaf Taoist could die in peace. What is it? Lu Renhuang and the others were having a meeting to discuss the Earth Imperial Universe. The deaf Taoist came in and said something out of the blue. Everyone was confused. Patriarch of Law Enforcement was the first to come to his senses. He stood up and asked with trembling lips, "Are you saying Lu Li has made the breakthrough? Lord has made the last step?" Before the deaf Taoist could reply, Chen Tianxian and Blazing Hua had come together. Blazing Hua said with certainty. They sensed the change in space and deduced the specific situation. Good. Lu Jingyang and Lu Renhuang were overjoyed. They knew that Lu Li had a high chance of becoming an immortal. That being said, nobody could be sure. The news spread out. The entire city of Great Land was boiling. Since Emperor of Heaven Reverse became an immortal, there was finally another one in the Heaven Reverse universe. What was more, Lu Li became an immortal earlier than Emperor of Heaven Reverse, 30 years earlier. The Lu family was overjoyed. Of course, some were worried as well. Lu Li becoming an immortal meant that he was leaving. The Lu family had just taken over the Earth Imperial Universe and had yet to gain a firm foothold. Inevitably, Lu Li's departure would cause panic. At the north of the city of Great Land, in a beautiful manor that was newly built, Jiang Qiling, Bai Qiuxue, and Bai Xiaoshuang were speechless. Lu Li becoming an immortal meant that they would be separated from their husband. Throughout history, none of the immortals that went to the divinity ever came back. The only one that did, Emperor Heng, passed away not long after. Chapter 1201. Boom, 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 thunder rumbled above the prison of wind. Every half the time for an incense stick to burn, there would be a thunderbolt striking Lu Li, who was standing on the ground. Lu Li had been struck for a day and a night. At first, the thunderbolts were silver, then white, and now golden. All the thunder and lightning didn't cause any damage to him. Instead, they were constantly transforming his physical body, making it stronger and condensing his soul. After a day and a night, Lu Li realized that his body had been strengthened by at least 4 to 5 times. The thunderbolts were still purple. There were golden and black thunderbolts yet to come. When all the thunderbolts struck, his body would be at least 20 times stronger. What did that mean? Not even a warrior at the initial stage of the semi-god realm could kill Lu Li's physical body at the moment. He could stand there and let Blazing Hua, Blood Emperor, and the others attack him, and he would not be harmed. Lu Li also noticed that his Xian energy and his bead of life were changing. His Xian energy was more condensed, and the color of his bead of life was changing. It was glowing in a golden light. Lu Li sensed something he was familiar with, the might of divinity. All immortals had the might of divinity. This was due to the transformation of the body by nature and the change of Xian energy and soul. Immortals had a different atmosphere and a special atmosphere. Some warriors had arrived, but none of them dared to come closer. They were observing from a distance of 30 miles. They were envious of Lu Li's young age and the might of divinity coming from him. They wished they could dash over and smack Lu Li away so that they could enjoy the gift and transformation of nature. Of course, they were not so foolish. If they were to dash over, they would be burnt to ashes by the thunderbolts. The law of nature recognized Lu Li, not them. Thunderbolts had 2 kinds of energy, destruction and rebirth. What Lu Li received was rebirth, but what Lu Li received might be destruction. As time moved on, more warriors were coming. Those that could come were mostly warriors from the prison of wind. Those from the prison of ice and prison of darkness would take some time to get here. While the warriors were envious, they began to observe and feel with their hearts, trying to pick up something so that they could take the next step. 2 days and 2 nights later, the thunderbolts turned black. Luli was unharmed as well. He noticed that his Xian energy had turned into golden divine energy, and his soul pond had condensed into something like a golden pellet. Boom, 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 the black thunder and lightning became more and more rapid, and the chi of heaven and earth in the sky gradually dissipated. It seemed that it was the final critical moment. Luli opened up his mind and entered the spatial state. He accepted the gifts from heaven and earth and allowed the laws of heaven and earth to transform him. What happened next shocked Luli. When the last thunderbolt struck down, the silver dragon mark in the golden core in his mind suddenly lit up. Then, the golden core quickly transformed into a saber, a small silver saber. F***ck, Luli was taken aback. The silver dragon mark was making trouble again at the critical moment? This was a crucial moment for him to become a god. If he made even the slightest mistake, he might not be able to become a god, or he might be blasted into pieces by the lightning. Even if nothing happened, if his soul was modified into something indecent, it might harm him for the rest of his life. Boom! When the last thunderbolt struck down, Luli's body glowed in a golden light. His divine might grew. Xian energy in his body was transformed into golden divine energy, surging in his body. At the same time, the silver saber in Luli's soul was glowing. The saber had taken shape and it could not be changed. There was a faint pattern on the silver saber. It was the silver dragon mark. Immortal body formed, soul gathered, divine energy changed, and divine might emerged. Luli's mind was flooded with information. He closed his eyes and stood still, digesting the information in his mind. At the same time, he did some calculations. All of a sudden, he trembled and opened his eyes in shock. The information in his mind told him that he must ascend to the divinity in 3 months. Luli did some calculations. The date of his ascension was exactly the same as what Astro Emperor said. Last time when he parted ways with Astro Emperor said he would ascend in 1 year and 8 months. It had been about 1 year and 5 months. The timing was just right. Is there really such a thing as fate? Could it be that there is a big hand of fate controlling everyone's fate? Luli gazed into the sky and said nothing for a long time. He was not surprised that Astro Emperor could foresee destiny. What shocked him was that there was such a thing as fate in heaven and earth. Never mind. Luli waved his hand. He had no more time. He had to go back and bid farewell to his family and friends. Then, he would go to the prison of thunder and ascend to the divinity. Whoosh! His body shot up into the sky and rushed towards the entrance of the ice purgatory. As he flew, even he himself was shocked. He was much faster than before. Not even the wicked bead was 1/10 as fast as him. In an instant, Luli vanished into the distance. The semi-god realm warriors nearby looked at each other in astonishment. An immortal was indeed an immortal. His speed was much faster than mortals. Some warriors were on their way. They saw a flash of white light in midair. Before they could react, Luli had vanished into the distance. Well, he is fast. Arriving at the prison of ice, Luli nodded to himself. At this speed, it would only take him a few days to go to the Earth Imperial Universe and a month to go to the Prison of Thunder. He had 2 months to reunite with his family and friends. He could settle everything. Well, let me test my abilities. Luli turned to a huge iceberg in the distance. He took out his relic weapon and released the Slayer's move. Swish, a ray of blood-red sword light appeared. It was 2 miles long. As soon as it appeared, the space nearby was torn apart. Wherever the ray of sword light passed by, a huge crack appeared in the space. The space within a radius of 3,000 miles was shaking violently. Well, 3 warriors happened to be on their way. They wanted to go to the prison of wind to have a look. They were stunned by the blood-red ray of sword light. Boom! The ray of sword light landed on a huge iceberg in the distance. The iceberg was split open from the middle. The iceberg was 2 miles high and had a radius of more than 300 miles. A huge valley emerged in the middle. The sides of the valley were smooth as mirrors, as if it were natural. The might of an immortal is horrifying. The 3 warriors trembled in fear. They dropped to one knee and did not dare to look at Luli, who was in midair, afraid that they would disrespect the immortal. Not bad. Let's go. Luli nodded. He did not look at the 3 warriors. He flew into the distance and vanished into the horizon in an instant. It's good that I have become an immortal. Chapter 1202. It only took Luli 7 days to return to the Earth Imperial Universe. Like a hero returning in triumph, he was welcomed by many. In addition to those from the Heaven Reverse Universe, warriors from the 9 universes and the surviving families of the Earth Imperial Universe were here as well. Standing with an immortal at such a close distance was a chance for them to be blessed with divinity. Many young people were waiting outside the city of Great Land. To be able to see an immortal was something to boast about in the future. There were immortals in the 9 universes. Even smaller universes nearby, such as the Waters region, had produced immortals. But Luli was the youngest one. It was unprecedented, if not unprecedented. What was more, Luli had done something that no one had ever done before. He had conquered the Relic City before he became an immortal. Many people thought highly of Luli. Many people were certain that Luli would achieve more than Yen Tiangang, and that he would come back with glory. Of course, others snorted. They believed that Luli would be killed as soon as he went to the divinity because he had offended Yen Tiangang. Yen Tiangang was a mighty warrior in the divinity, a patriarch of the Black Dragon Mansion, one of the top 10 forces at Southern Divinity. As far as many people were concerned, patriarchs were the leaders of different forces. Patriarchs of families in the 9 universes were all leaders. The Black Dragon Mansion was one of the top 10 forces at Southern Divinity. How could Luli escape from Yen Tiangang? It was like a warrior from the Waters region coming to the Earth Imperial Universe. This warrior had offended a patriarch of one of the top 10 forces at Southern Earth Imperial Universe. Could this warrior live in peace in the Earth Imperial Universe? As a matter of fact, those people did not know that Luli had not only offended one immortal, but also God of Barbarian, God of Sorcerer and God of Wings. In particular, Luli hated God of Wings. If God of Wings knew that Luli had gone to the divinity, she would try everything to hunt him down. Luli didn't think too much about it. He accepted the congratulations and attended the banquet with everyone who came to congratulate him. The Lu family had prepared hundreds of tables. Every family patriarch had a seat. Luli was approachable. Maybe, at this stage, he was no longer on the same level as the others. There was no need to put on airs. Just by sitting there, he was enough for everyone to look up to him. Seeing Luli talking to the family patriarchs of the 9 universes with a smile, Lu Renhuang exclaimed to himself that Luli knew how to conduct himself. Luli was about to ascend to the immortal realm. If he were to make enemies with the other families, it would bring endless troubles to the Lu family. And with him being so gentle, the various family heads would be flattered, and their jealousy and hatred towards the Lu clan would lessen a little. This would be beneficial to the development of the Lu clan in the future. Making enemies with the entire world sounded awesome, but in fact it was very easy to destroy them. Many ants could bite an elephant to death. If the Lu clan made enemies everywhere, it would be hard for them to escape the fate of destruction. Luli would not propose a toast, but he would take a sip from anyone that came. Many warriors were thrilled. Drinking with a deity was something that he could brag about for the rest of his life. They drank from noon to the evening. Luli had built a good relationship with the Lu family. At the end of the banquet, Luli disconnected the spiritual connection between the relic armor and weapon and handed them to Lu Renhuang in front of everyone. Lu Renhuang was stunned. Luli explained with a smile. His physical body was no weaker than when he was wearing the relic armor. He had no use for this divine weapon and divine armor, so he gave it to the Lu clan to use as a clan protection treasure. Many people were envious, and they admired Lu Li's cleverness. By giving the relic armor and weapon to Lu Renhuang in front of everyone, Lu Li was telling the other families of the 9 universes that they should not have any ideas about the Lu family. Otherwise, Lu Renhuang could destroy any family with the relic armor and the divinity. How could the Yen family remain at the peak of the 9 universes? It was because they had the city and the relic armor and weapon. The city could ensure the Yen family's survival, and the relic armor and weapon were weapons of attack. Any warrior at the peak of the semi-god realm could dominate the 9 universes with the relic armor and kill most powerful warriors with the relic weapon. That was the absolute deterrent. Using the carrot and stick, Lu Li's banquet had guaranteed the Lu family at least 100 years of peace. The Lu family was weak, but they had the Earth Imperial Universe. In 100 years, the Lu family could become one of the top families of the 9 universes. The night was quiet. The guests had left. Lu Li did not go to bed. He discussed with Patriarch of Law Enforcement, Lu Xingyang, Lu Renhuang, and Great-Grandfather 5 until midnight. After the discussion, Lu Li did not go to see Jiang Qiling and the others. He left with Lu Renhuang by himself. He sped up and took Lu Renhuang to the prison of gold, the prison of water, and finally the prison of wood. He did not want to go back and take a look before he ascended. He was here for the dragon demon. The dragon demon was a creature from the region of doom. It was still young and had not fully grown up. It would take decades or even 100 years for the dragon demon to reach the psychic level. That being said, once the dragon demon could reach the psychic level, it would be as strong as an average immortal. It would be a piece of cake for the dragon demon to dominate the 9 universes. Lu Li brought Lu Renhuang back because he wanted to give the dragon demon to Lu Renhuang. It was pointless for Lu Li to bring the dragon demon to the divinity. The dragon demon would be of great use to the Lu family. After decades or 100 years, when the dragon demon became a mythical beast, it could protect the Lu family forever. For the sake of his family, friends, and family, Lu Li had racked his brains. Lu Li disconnected the spiritual connection with the dragon demon, but the dragon demon did not even dare to move. The dragon demon was not intelligent, but it did know how powerful Lu Li was. With Lu Li's help, the dragon demon and Lu Renhuang reached an agreement and became his spiritual beast. This time, Lu Li could put his mind at ease. Blazing Hua had become Lu Renhuang's sole slave. Now, the only spiritual beast Lu Li had was the Deaf Taoist. Well, there was Little White. But Little White was not contracted to Lu Li, so it was not his spiritual beast. To Lu Li, Little White was his younger brother. Let's go back. Lu Li did not go to the Heaven Reverse Universe after the dragon demon was taken care of. Time was running out. He took Lu Renhuang back to the Earth Imperial Universe as fast as he could. The round trip took more than 10 days. According to Lu Li's estimation, he had more than a month to spend with his family and his 3 wives. As a matter of fact, Lu Li could go to the forbidden ground of Elder God. Maybe he could get the relic weapon and armor left by Emperor Hung. With the relic armor, he would have something to rely on. Given his current abilities, he should be able to survive the inhibition formations in the forbidden ground of Elder God and search for the treasures. Eventually, Lu Li gave up after some consideration. He had obtained the most valuable treasures left by Emperor Hung, the Wicked Bead and the Map of Fundamental Principle. He would leave the relic weapon and armor to the destined ones. More importantly, It would take him a month or two to go to the forbidden ground of Elder God, which might delay his ascension. In that case, he would have no time to spend with his 3 wives. Compared to the treasures, Bai Qiushue, Bai Xiaoshuang, and Jiang Qiling were more important to him. Going to the divinity meant that he would be crossing 2 realms. If his 3 wives could not ascend and he could not become a super mighty warrior in the divinity, then he and his 3 wives would never see each other again. His 3 wives understood this. They spent every day and night with Lu Li. None of them talked about the divinity or when Lu Li would go there. Chapter 1203. A month flashed by. It was time for Lu Li to leave. After all, he had to go across the prison of gold, prison of ice, prison of wind, prison of darkness, prison of soul and prison of thunder. Even if Lu Li was fast, it would take him some time. As soon as Lu Li announced that they would depart in 5 days, many people hurried to the Earth Imperial Universe. Actually, many people hadn't left since the last banquet. They were all waiting to see Lu Li off. Becoming a god. That was the peak of martial arts in the mortal world. Warriors, whether they were enemies or friends of Lu Li, were ready to send him off. Respect for a god realm martial artist was a form of respect and awe for the martial Tao. This was a rare period of leisure for Lu Li. Everything was in order and he had nothing to worry about. He spent all his time with Jiang Qiling, Bai Qiushue, and Bai Xiaoshuang. When he had nothing to do, he would hang out with Yi Luo, Mingyu, and Lu Lin. 5 days later, Lu Li hugged his 3 wives and kissed them on their foreheads. Then, he looked at them with determination and said, "Trust me. I will come back as soon as possible. I can walk out of the northern desert, stand at the peak of the heaven reverse universe, stand at the peak of the 9 universes. I can become an immortal. I will make a name for myself in the divinity. I will come back, to pick you up and go to the divinity together." And the 3 nodded. Jiang Qiling bit her teeth, Bai Qiushue's eyes were red and Bai Xiaoshuang couldn't hold back her tears. She held on to Lu Li's arm tightly, as if they were going to part forever. Bai Qiushue patted Bai Xiaoshuang's back. Finally, the latter let go of Lu Li's hand and turned her face away, as if she didn't want Lu Li to see her crying. Lu Li looked at Bai Xiaoshuang. He did not have the heart to leave. Fortunately, Bai Xiaoshuang wiped away her tears after Bai Qiushue comforted her. She hugged Lu Li again with a smile and said seriously, "Darling, go to the divinity in peace. Don't worry about home. I will cultivate diligently and strive to break through to become a god. Then, I will go to the god world to find a husband." "Haha, Shuang-er is ambitious. Do your best." Lu Li grinned. Bai Xiaoshuang would never change her character in this lifetime. Asking her to cultivate in peace? This was harder than ascending to heaven. Bai Xiaoshuang becoming a god, Lu Li gave them a meaningful look. He walked out of the gate and flew up. Jiang Qiling and the twins followed him. There was nobody in the city. Lu Li and the other 3 flew out of the city and looked down. They saw a dense crowd of people standing on the plaza of the city of Great Land, filling up the entire plaza. Lu Li flew down with the 3 of them and glanced over the faces on the ground. Patriarch of Law Enforcement, Lu Xingyang, Lu Renhuang, Lu Feishue, Great-Grandfather 5, Jiang Tianshun, Jiang Hua, Yi Luo, Prajna Yi Xiaoxi, Yi Cha, Kumang, Mingyu, Madame Yen. There were too many familiar faces, too many relatives and friends. Even though Lu Li looked calm, he was actually a bit sad. "I advise you to drink another cup of wine. You won't have any old friends in the god realm." Lu Li didn't greet them one by one. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to leave today. He just looked at many people, then waved his hand and said in an extremely firm tone, "Everyone, wait for my return." Whoosh, with that said, Lu Li made up his mind and waved at the deaf Taoist. The latter yelled into the sky and transformed. Then, he vanished between Lu Li's eyebrows. Lu Li flew up. Many people at the plaza knelt down and shouted together, "Farewell, Lord Lu!" Tens of thousands of warriors shouted at the same time. Their voices shook heaven and earth. Lu Li waved his hand and flew to the distance without hesitation. He was not fast. Dressed in green robes, with a head of white hair and a sword-like back, he gradually disappeared into the horizon under everyone's gaze. Jiang Qiling and Bai Qiushue, who had not shed a single tear, burst into tears. Bai Xiaoshuang cried her heart out. Patriarch of law enforcement, Lu Xingyang and great-grandfather Five shed tears. Ming Yu, Kumang, Yi Cha and the others were upset. Lu Lin, Lu Hongyu and Yi Luo clenched their fists. Yi Xiaoxi's beautiful face turned pale, and she was a little lost. Prajna, however, didn't cry. She just murmured softly, "Brother Lu, you promised me that as long as I can go to the divine realm, you will accept me. Brother Lu, wait for me. I will go to the divine realm. I will." Many warriors of the 9 universes were relieved. If Lu Li went to the divine realm, the Lu family would not be able to unify the 9 universes. Soon, the 9 universes would be in turmoil, but there was no need to worry about the Lu family. Without Lu Li, the Lu family would lose their edge. The Lu family could only protect themselves and not attack. Blazing Hua and Chen Tianxian were relieved as well. They were no longer Lu Li's sole slaves, and Chen Tianxian was free. But Lu Li was like a mountain. He had been suppressing them and suffocating them. Without Lu Li, the Lu family would treat them with more respect. Of course, they would do their best to protect the Lu family's rights. Finally, this Maleficent is gone. Many warriors of the Earth Imperial Universe were relieved. They had learned that it was Lu Li's idea to attack the families of the Earth Imperial Universe. Last time, 70% of the families of the Earth Imperial Universe were wiped out. To many people, Lu Li was no different from a demon. Now that the demon was gone, they didn't have to worry about someone coming at them at any time. 300 miles away, Lu Li sped up and left the Earth Imperial Universe as fast as he could. It was not that he was in a hurry. He was afraid that he would be soft-hearted and reluctant to leave. Lu Li had made up his mind after he entered the prison of gold. He put the matter of the Earth Imperial Universe out of his mind. He knew that there was no turning back now that he had taken the first step. He had no time to be sentimental. Once he went to the divinity, he would enter a whole new battlefield. He would face greater challenges. If he did not try his best, he might be killed by Yen Tiangang as soon as he arrived at the divinity. He killed Yen Zhen, took the relic armor and weapon, conquered the relic city, and wiped out the Yen family. Yen Tiangang hated his gut. Yen Tiangang might send someone to the place where Lu Li ascended to. Lu Li would be hunted down in the divinity. Let's go. Lu Li knew nothing about the divinity. It was pointless to think about it now. He would adapt to the situation when he arrived at the divinity. He flew to the prison of ice at full speed and then to the prison of darkness. Finally, he crossed the prison of soul. At the entrance to the prison of thunder, he ran into 2 people that surprised him, Blood Emperor and Astro Emperor. Lu Li was relieved to think of the mysterious means of Astro Emperor. He stopped and bowed to the 2 with respect. Blood Emperor expressed that he did not dare to do so. After all, Lu Li's realm was much higher than his. Seeing Lu Li's gentle smile, Blood Emperor took Lu Li's hands and said with mixed feelings, "Lu Li, we are not destined to be master and apprentice. But it is my honor to know you. Don't worry and go to the divinity. As long as I am in the 9 universes, I will protect the Lu family for you." "Thank you, Blood Emperor." Lu Li did not say much. He just nodded gratefully. Blood Emperor was strong and had high prestige. With his words, the Lu family would be safe. Astro Emperor accepted Lu Li's bow calmly. Stroking his goatee, Astro Emperor said, "Lu Li, there is a vaster world waiting for you to soar in. Relax and fight. Do not worry. As long as you have the will to never give up and move forward bravely, your future will be limitless. Maybe the next time we meet, you will be at the peak of the divinity. By then, don't pretend that you don't know me. Next time? Luli was confused. Was Astro Emperor about to become an immortal? He wanted to ask a few questions, but Star Emperor waved his hand and refused to say anything. Chapter 1204. The Prison of Thunder was still the same as before. As soon as Luli stepped in, he could feel a sense of destruction. Anyone in the Prison of Thunder would feel the pressure and the threat of death. Of course, Luli felt completely different this time. He didn't feel any pressure. The moment he became an immortal, he endured all kinds of thunderbolts. He was confident that he could survive the ocean of thunder and ascend to the divinity. He did not fly toward the ocean of thunder. Instead, he used psychic power to check. Only now could his psychic power be regarded as real psychic power. His psychic power spread out quietly like the night wind. It covered an area with a radius of 3,000 miles, and there seemed to be no end. He did not find Little White after a while. There was no trace of Little White in an area with a radius of tens of thousands of miles. Luli frowned and flew toward the ocean of thunder. Boom! A white thunderbolt came down from the sky. Luli did not dodge and let the thunderbolt strike him. If he could not stand the white thunderbolt, he could forget about ascending to the divinity. He was right. When the white thunderbolt entered his body, nothing happened to him. It was as if he had just been blown by a gentle breeze. Now that he was confident, he continued to fly forward at a faster speed. After flying for an hour, Luli had arrived at the edge of the ocean of thunder. Finally, he found Little White. Luli was taken aback by what he saw. Because Little White was wandering in the center of the Sea of Lightning, it was enduring the bombardment of the golden lightning, and it could even withstand the bombardment of the golden lightning. How strong was the golden thunderbolt? Luli did not know the details, but he did know that an average warrior at the peak of the semi-god realm would not be able to stand it. How could Little White improve so fast in a year and a half? Or was Little White born with the attribute of being resistant to thunder? Or was it not harmful to Little White? Either way, Luli was happy to see Little White's improvement. Little White grew up with him and was highly intelligent. To Luli, Little White was no different from a younger brother. That being said, clearly, Little White was not strong enough to go to the core area. At the moment, Luli could see that the towering mountain was surrounded by black thunderbolts. Little White could not make it. Since Little White was not his spiritual beast, Luli could not put it between his eyebrows and take it to the divinity. Little White! Luli shouted. In the distance, Little White, which was moving through the sea of thunderbolts, suddenly turned around. Its eyes were filled with joy when it saw Luli. Little White dashed over like a sharp sword. Bam bam! Luli jumped onto Little White's shoulder. Little White screamed in excitement and rubbed its head against Luli's face. Its eyes were filled with pride as if it was waiting for Luli's praise. Not bad, Little White, you've improved a lot. Luli patted Little White's head. Little White's white fur was ruined, revealing its bald head. It didn't look as pretty as before. Of course, Luli didn't mind. He even kissed Little White. Little White, continue to work hard and try to pass through the Black Lightning Sea as soon as possible. Luli continued after a pause. When you go through the sea of black thunderbolts and reach the towering mountain, you can go to the divinity with me. Little White looked at Luli in confusion, a bit surprised. Then, it stretched out its little paw and pointed at the sky-piercing mountain, then pointed at itself, a hint of unswerving determination in its eyes. You want to go to the divinity with me? Luli was surprised. Then, he shook his head. No, Little White, you are not strong enough. You cannot go through. If you are not strong enough, natural laws will not allow you to go to the divinity. You will be blasted to death. Squeak, squeak, Little White grabbed Luli's paws and kept screaming. It was determined that it must go to the divinity with Luli, even at the cost of its life. How about this? Luli thought about it and said, I will put you in the wicked bead. If you are not expelled by natural laws, I will take you to the divinity. If you're expelled, you'll have to stay here and cultivate. Natural laws must have restrictions, or else immortals would have taken humans to the divinity. Little White did not know how to become a spiritual beast. Luli's only option was to put Little White in the wicked bead. The wicked bead was a supreme relic. It might be able to protect Little White and let it sneak into the divinity. Squeak, squeak, Little White made some noises to express its agreement. Luli took out the wicked bead and put Little White in. After a pause, Luli flew toward the ocean of thunderbolts. He was not afraid that he would be struck to death, but that something might happen to Little White. In the ocean of thunderbolts were roaming about. Luli was enveloped by thunderbolts as soon as he went in. Countless thunderbolts whooshed toward him, trying to tear him apart like a stampede of beasts. Luli did not use the burning blood skill or the dragon armor. He relied on his physical strength. He had an immortal body. The thunderbolts in the mortal world could not hurt him. He flew slowly. No matter how many thunderbolts came, Luli did not waste any time. The thunderbolts were like waves. Nothing could make him step back. Luli slowed down. Soon, he arrived at the center of the ocean of thunderbolt. The thunderbolts here had turned golden. Luli pulled a long face. It was not that he was afraid of thunderbolts, but he felt the space was shaking violently. Every time a thunderbolt came, the space would tremble violently. What worried Luli the most had happened. When he entered the area covered by the black thunderbolts, he felt the space was shaking even more violently. When a black thunderbolt whooshed by and hit him, the wicked bead in his hand suddenly glowed. Then, Little White appeared out of nowhere and was enveloped by the thunderbolt. Oh no! Seeing smoke rising from Little White, Luli grabbed Little White and flung it behind him. Luli had taken the brunt of that black thunderbolt. Just a part of it was enough to injure Little White. If Little White were to take on more thunderbolts in a row, it would be struck to death. Little White was smashed away. Even though it was being struck by the golden thunderbolts, it could still stand it. Its eyes were filled with anxiety. It kept yelling at Luli and was about to fly over to Luli. Stop! Luli shouted angrily. Little White, you promised me that if you were to be banished by the laws of nature, you would stay here. If you don't listen to me, I will never talk to you again. Luli had lost his temper. Little White was frightened. Luli rarely lost his temper to Little White. For a moment, Little White hesitated and did not dare to come over. Little White whimpered and looked at Luli with a pitiful look. Luli did not relent. This was not a joke. Little White could lose its life. Luli said in a softer tone, Little White, keep on refining your body here. In a few months or a year, you will be able to cross the ocean of thunderbolts. Listen to me, okay? Come and find me when you reach the divinity. I will never abandon you. Little White whimpered. Luli made up his mind and dashed toward the towering mountain in the distance. Indecisiveness could lead to trouble. He was not in the mood to worry too much. He had to face greater challenges in the divinity. Stepping onto the towering mountain, Luli didn't feel any pressure. He could go up with ease. He didn't stop and rushed up. When he was about to take the last step, he looked back. What he saw scared him so much that his legs almost gave way and he fell down. That was because he saw Little White transform into a white light and charge towards him. In an instant, it crossed the sea of lightning and rushed to the foot of the sky-piercing mountain. However, black smoke was rising from Little White's small body. It was as if Little White had turned into a piece of charcoal. Little White rolled on the towering mountain, motionless. Little White's life was uncertain. P.S. I will have a meeting in Nanjing and will write 2 chapters a day. I will be back to normal on the 14th. I will keep updating when I have time. I know I owe you a lot. I have no choice but to make up for it slowly. Chapter 1205. Little White. Luli yelled in surprise. He looked awful. He checked Little White with psychic power and sensed that its breath of life was fading away. Luli was heartbroken. Little White was a Xian beast, but for Luli, Little White was his family. When he was at the northern desert, he was at his lowest. Little White followed him and helped him out of danger countless times. Little White saved his life many times. Little White was as intelligent as a human being. To Luli, Little White was no different from a naughty brother. Whoosh! Without any hesitation, Luli dashed down without any hesitation. He didn't care if this would affect his ascension. He sped up to the limit. In the time for one breath, he reached the bottom and held Little White, which was now a roasted piece of meat, in his arms. Fortunately, there were no more thunderbolts, or else Little White would have been blasted into pieces. In an instant, hundreds of ideas flashed across Luli's mind. His hand glowed in a golden light. He poured divine energy into Little White, trying to save it. Buzzing, at the same time, Luli took out many elixirs from his ring and fed them to Little White. If he could save Little White, Luli would not hesitate even if it was a miracle. Useless, useless, useless. Divine energy was poured into Little White, but to no avail. Little White's life was weakening. Luli fed Little White many elixirs, but to no avail. Buzzing, buzzing, Luli's ring was glowing. He took out many elixirs and materials related to healing. They were all over the place. Luli fed all kinds of elixirs to Little White and then used divine energy to dissolve the elixirs. The elixirs turned into energy and spread to Little White. Hang in there, Little White. You must hang in there. Luli kept yelling. Sweat was dripping down from his forehead. He could not imagine how Little White was going to die. He regretted bringing Little White to the prison of thunder. He should not have left so resolutely. All the more, he shouldn't have left so resolutely just now. Xiao Bai might have high intelligence, but he was no different from a child. He liked to fool around and was extremely stubborn. Buzzing. Luli took out some more elixirs. One item caught his attention. It was some golden stones. This was something he had obtained from Yen Zhen and Yen Hu's spatial rings. It was called the Divine Source, and it was something from the divine world. Desperate times call for desperate measures. Luli took out 2 divine sources and fed them to Little White. Then, he used divine energy to consume them. The divine sources turned into strands of golden energy and spread across Little White's body. When the golden energy spread through Little White's body, Luli suddenly felt refreshed. He was overjoyed. After refining 2 divine roots for Little White's life aura actually stopped weakening. It was hanging on to its last breath, preserving some of its life essence force. All right. Luli fed more divine sources to Little White at once and then used divine energy to help Little White consume them. However, to Luli's disappointment, after consuming 7 or 8 divine sources, Little White's breath of life did not increase. It was still hanging on. It's good that you're not dead. As long as you're still breathing, I'll definitely save you, Luli murmured with determination. He did not dare to act recklessly. He put away the elixirs and fed Little White a divine source every 10 breaths. The many elixirs he fed Little White just now had some effect. Little White's wounds were recovering, but its breath of life was still weak. Little White was like an oil lamp in the wind, about to go out at any time. Luli kept on observing. He did not feed Little White too quickly because he did not have many divine sources, only about 3,000 in total. If he fed Little White like this, he would run out soon. Divine source could save Little White's life. As long as Little White's breath of life weakened, one divine source could stabilize it. Time moved on. Half a day later, Little White was still the same. Luli calmed himself down. He took out the wicked bead and put Little White in. Then, he let out the deaf Taoist and they both went into the wicked bead. Maybe it was because Little White had entered the towering mountain, or maybe Little White had crossed the ocean of thunders, but the natural laws did not drive Little White out. Luli was relieved. Luli went back to the wicked bead and told the deaf Taoist about Little White. The latter looked at Little White in astonishment. "Lord, this beast of yours is something else." The deaf Taoist exclaimed, "Little White is not an immortal, and it is not your spiritual beast yet. Theoretically speaking, it cannot enter the towering mountain. Natural laws should kill it directly. I didn't expect that it would survive. Now is not the time to talk about this." Luli waved his hand in annoyance. "Think of a way to save Little White." "There is no other way." The deaf Taoist took a closer look and said, "Little White's source of life must have been hurt. Without the divine source, Little White would have died a long time ago. Divine source is something special. It has saved Little White's life. If we want to save Little White, we must go to the divinity to find some elixirs to repair its source of life." Go to the divinity? Luli frowned. An idea came to his mind. "If I go to the divinity later, will Little White be driven out by natural laws? If we go to the divinity and Little White is driven out, it will die for sure." "I don't think so." The deaf Taoist shook his head after some thoughts. "Since Little White can go through the ocean of thunders, then Little White is qualified to go to the divinity. Even a mortal can go to the divinity if you are able to protect them through the prison of thunders. Many super mighty warriors in the divinity have gone back to the mortal world and brought their families and people to the divinity." "Okay." Luli was relieved. He took out over 1,000 divine source and handed them to the deaf Taoist. "Keep an eye on Little White for me. If Little White dies, you will not survive either." The deaf Taoist could not afford to be careless when Luli had said so. The deaf Taoist patted his chest and said, "Lord, don't worry. I will take care of Little White. You go to the divinity and establish yourself there. Do not leave the city for no reason. If Yen Tiangang sends someone to keep an eye on you, you will be in danger as soon as you leave the city." Luli thought about it and asked, "Is it absolutely safe in the city?" "In principle, yes." The deaf Taoist had some knowledge about the divinity. He explained, "Cities in the divinity forbid violence. Unless the person doing the fighting is more powerful than the leader of the force that the city belongs to, you will be hunted down by the force. Of course, if the city you ascend to happens to be within the territory of the Black Dragon Mansion, you will be in big trouble. But there are 70 or 80 ascending cliffs in the southern divinity. Every prefecture has one. Lord, I don't think you are that unlucky." Luli nodded. The deaf Taoist added, "Lord, when you go to the divinity, keep a low profile. Do not offend the local prefecture warriors. Otherwise, your death will be in vain. Also, do not provoke the 4 supernatural forces. They will kill people in the city as well. Even the prefecture masters will not say a word when they are killed." The 4 supernatural forces? This was the first time Luli had heard of this. The deaf Taoist explained, "The divinity recognizes the 4 supernatural forces: Spacetime Office, Cabinet of Mystery, Hall of Life and Death, and Craftsman's Sect. I don't know the details. Anyways, not even the Lord of the Region of Doom dares to offend the 4 supernatural forces. Otherwise, he will be killed." "Okay, I will remember." Chapter 1206. Southern Divinity, Azure Flame Manor, Ascension Cliff. Every prefecture in the divinity had an ascension cliff. Azure Flame Manor's ascension cliff was by the sea. This cliff was quite high, tens of thousands of meters high. It protruded out like an eagle's beak, as if it was floating in the air. The seawater below was tumbling. The waves hit the cliff with a deafening sound. The wind was raging on the cliff. A timid person wouldn't dare to stand on the cliff in case they were blown off. There were more people on the cliff. There were more than 30 of them. Some of them were very strange. For example, there was a green-skinned man with 3 eyes. He looked like a monster. Other than these 3, the rest sat on one side. The other 3 sat on the other side. The 3 of them wore dark blue divine armors. Their faces were cold, and their expressions were like 10,000-year-old ice. They looked like middle-aged men, but they were very old. They seemed to be the same age as the cliff. The other 30 or so people had very rich expressions. Their eyes were full of curiosity and excitement. They looked around carefully as if it was their first time in the divinity. There was a huge altar in the middle of the crowd. The altar was very old and there were faint cracks on it. It was unknown if the altar could still be used. Buzzing, at this moment, the altar suddenly flashed with light. It didn't release a boundless golden light, but there was a faint light flowing on the patterns inside. A simple and vast aura spread out from the altar. Someone new ascended. Someone said excitedly. However, a cultivator in blue godly armor snorted coldly, and that person immediately shut his mouth, not daring to say anything more. Buzzing, the light inside the altar dimmed. A figure condensed inside. It was a white-haired young man in blue robes. Divinity! The young man opened his eyes and said. He couldn't suppress the excitement in his eyes. Anyone who finally ascended to the divinity after working hard for many years would find it hard to control themselves. Such rich celestial chi. Such an ancient energy. The young man sensed for a while and murmured softly again. However, before he could finish lamenting, a cold voice sounded and attracted his attention. Go over there and sit cross-legged. Wait for the oracle to receive you. The white-haired young man was Luli. He came to his senses and cupped his fists to the blue-armored warrior with respect. Then he walked to the corner of the crowd and sat down with his legs crossed. The deaf Taoist had warned Luli to keep a low profile in the divinity. Naturally, Luli understood the gravity of the situation. His aura was restrained, and he looked like an ordinary person. However, no matter how low-key Luli was, he still caught many people's attention because Luli was so young. There were more than 30 people sitting here. Many of them looked young, but they were much older than Luli. The youngest one should be in his 70s or 80s. Hey, white hair, how old are you this year? A strong man near Luli couldn't help but ask in the ancient language. This was the common language in the divinity. Even though it was not standard, Luli could understand. Shut up. Anyone who dares to make noise will be thrown into the sea of vicissitudes. There are many wild beasts down there. Don't blame us if you die. A warrior in blue armor glanced over coldly. Luli and the others looked at him as well. Everyone felt their souls were frozen. They kept quiet out of fear, and no one dared to say another word. The strong man was not convinced. That being said, they had just arrived. Who would dare to be arrogant? All of them had just become immortals. The 3 blue-armored warriors were strong. They must have become immortals for many years. Luli sat with his legs crossed, keeping a low profile. He dared not to say anything. He looked around quietly. He wanted to check on Little White, but he did not dare to take out the wicked bead. If the 3 blue-armored warriors found out and took the wicked bead, he would lose his life here. The space in the divinity is stable. I feel there is a mysterious force that is restraining us. Can't we fly in the divinity? Luli was surprised. Just now, when he was walking slowly, he did not pay much attention. It was only when he moved his arms and body that he noticed the problem. But he did not dare to try flying. He sat quietly. 2 hours later, the altar glowed again. Another person ascended. Luli looked around. There were all kinds of people. He even noticed some of them had the energy of beasts. Luli thought to himself. It seemed that there were many mortal universes. It was just that those universes were not connected to the 9 universes. Otherwise, there was no other explanation for the immortals that ascended. Clearly, those people had just ascended. If there were not enough mortal universes, How could so many immortals ascend at the same time? The deaf Taoists said that there were 70 or 80 ascending cliffs at the southern divinity. If so, there must be hundreds of ascending cliffs in the entire divinity. People ascended all the time. It was not hard to imagine how many mortal universes there were. Buzzing, an hour later, another person ascended. This time, it was a handsome young man with a pair of wings on his back. Ha 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 ha! As soon as he ascended, he raised his head and laughed. He kept mumbling something. Nobody knew what he was talking about. All in all, he was arrogant. Shut up! A blue-armored warrior shouted. But Luli could not tell if that handsome young man could not understand the language of the divinity or he was being too arrogant. He ignored the blue-armored warrior and continued to laugh. He spread his wings and was about to fly up. Luli saw that the handsome young man flapped his wings but could only reach a height of 10 feet. He wanted to go higher but could not. He must have been suppressed by a strong force. Courting death. The blue-armored warrior that spoke was enraged. He took out a blood-red stick and swung it at the handsome young man. Bang! The blue-armored warrior was so fast that all Luli could see was a blur. Then, that handsome young man was smashed away. The young man was smashed off the ascending cliff. Blood came out and one of his wings was broken. Ah! The young man let out a blood-curdling scream. Unable to stabilize his body in midair, he fell heavily to the ground. Roar! Roar! Before the young man fell into the ocean, he heard an earth-shattering roar. A surge of horrifying energy spread out. A beast's head dashed out and swallowed the handsome young man. Then, the beast disappeared into the ocean. From beginning to end, the handsome young man did not even have the strength to fight back. Like a weak scholar, he was killed easily. Hiss, hiss! Luli and the others saw this with psychic power as well. They looked at each other in dismay, their faces clouded. The handsome young man had gone through so much to become an immortal. He was killed right after he ascended. He would not be able to rest in peace. Lord, you must keep a low profile in the divinity. Do not offend the local prefecture warriors. Otherwise, your death will be in vain. Luli remembered the deaf Taoist's warning. He felt lucky that he had chosen to keep a low profile. Otherwise, if he was killed as soon as he arrived at the divinity, Jiang Qiling, by Xiaoshuang, and the others would seek their own deaths and follow him here. Divinity. Chapter 1207. What made Luli happy was that Yen Tiangang was not here. This was not the Black Dragon Mansion, or else Luli would have been killed as soon as he ascended. Luli made up his mind to keep a low profile for a while. He could not use his real name or be too high profile. He must figure out the situation and gain a firm foothold in the divinity. After the handsome young man was killed, everyone became much more well-behaved. No one dared to speak again. Some people even didn't dare to look at the 3 blue-armored soldiers, afraid that if they angered them, they would die in vain. The immortal world was not as wonderful as they had imagined it to be. As soon as they entered the immortal world, the blue-armored soldier had already taught them a lesson, telling them the rules here, the cruelty here, and the cold-bloodedness of this place. How difficult it was for a mortal to become an immortal. For instance, out of the billions of people in the Heaven Reverse universe, how many could reach the semi-god realm? Not to mention becoming an immortal. In the history of the Heaven Reverse universe, there was only one Emperor of Heaven Reverse, and that was Luli. The 9 universes had so many resources and so many conditions. Even to become an immortal was extremely difficult, let alone the Heaven Reverse universe. In tens of thousands of years, or even hundreds of thousands of years, only one could ascend to the divinity realm. That was how difficult it was to become an immortal. Finally, one could ascend to the divinity realm only because he laughed because he could not communicate properly. Then, he flew into the sky. But the prefecture warriors did not give him a chance to change his ways. They killed him right away. That pretty young man was wrong, but the prefecture warriors here were too heartless and cruel. They did not attack Luli first, nor did they break the law knowingly. Keep a low profile, keep a low profile. Luli told himself that he must tread on thin ice in the divinity. He had to play dumb before he knew the situation. He was not afraid of trouble, but he did not want to die without knowing the reason. Buzzing, more and more people ascended. Half a day later, there were over 70 people sitting around Luli. It was getting dark. A blood moon rose in the western sky. This was a real blood moon, and it emitted a bewitching red light, illuminating the entire land and the distant sea with a bewitching red light. Coupled with the desolate and ancient aura of the god realm, it gave people a different feeling. The divinity, gazing into the ocean, Luli exclaimed to himself, "How many years had this land existed? How many people had ascended to the divine world? They had fought on this land, struggled on this land, rose up on this land, and died on this land." Buzzing. While Luli was deep in his thoughts, he heard a slight noise coming from the distance. Everyone looked over and they were shocked. In the sky to the north, a huge beast that was over 10 miles long silently flew over. The beast's entire body seemed to be made of metal. It was blue in color, and under the illumination of the blood moon, it reflected a faint red light. Between the blue and red, it gave off a ghostly feeling, captivating one's soul. Under the blood of Leslie, it was not strong. The beast was not Lili. It was Tuli. The beast was not Tuli. The beast was not to be. As the giant blue beast approached, everyone couldn't help but feel nervous. A blue-armored soldier said, "Don't move. This is a void beast of our blue flame manor. It doesn't have any attack power. It's here to receive you." Hearing the blue-armored soldier's words, everyone relaxed slightly. However, they still did not dare to be careless. After all, this giant beast was too big, and it flew silently. What if it suddenly swallowed everyone when it got close? The void beast flew dozens of miles in front of them and stopped. It suddenly opened its mouth, and to everyone's astonishment, 10 people actually flew out, and they were 10 blue-armored soldiers. 10 blue-armored soldiers flew over and arrived above the crowd. A brown-haired old man glanced at the crowd and said, "I'm Blue Flame Manor's envoy, Buchinya. All of you go under the Void Beast and I'll bring you to Blue Flame Manor. Of course, if you want to roam the God world on your own, there's no need for you to follow us. Wild beasts are everywhere outside the cities of the God world. Let me remind you, even the weakest desolate beast can easily tear you apart. That's all I have to say. Make your choice." They looked at each other. None of them dared to take the risk, especially Luli and the others. They had seen how powerful the desolate beast in the sea was. The handsome youth was easily devoured by the desolate beast without any chance to retaliate. More than a dozen people stood up and walked toward the beast. Luli stood up as well. The others hesitated for a moment and then walked toward the beast as well. The space here is stable. There is a special force that makes it hard for us to fly. Luli tried to check after he took a few steps. He tried to levitate, only to realize that he was enveloped by a strange force. He felt he was being pressed down by a mountain. What was strange was that as long as his feet were on the ground, the force would not appear. The others noticed this as well, but they didn't ask. They walked on in silence. The 10 blue-armored soldiers followed them slowly in midair. Their expressions were as cold as ice. They were like cold-blooded beasts. They stopped when they arrived at the void beast. Luli looked at the beast in midair with curiosity. He wondered how they were going to get up. Wouldn't they be digested as food after entering the stomach of the void beast? "Don't resist," Buchinya from Blue Flame Manor said coldly. Then, a ray of blue light came out from the void beast. A door opened in its belly. A ray of blue light poured down and enveloped everyone. Luli and the others were taken aback. Enveloped by the blue light, they all levitated up. A force of attraction enveloped them and pulled them toward the door. Someone was worried that it was a trap. They struggled to resist the attraction force. Buchienya threw them a cold glance and said, "If you continue to resist, you will have to explore the divinity on your own." Luli did not resist because he didn't feel any danger. The beast of the void was not intimidating. It was more like an iron-armored ship. Luli was not worried that Buchienya and the others would trap and kill them. The 3 blue-armored soldiers at the ascending cliff were more than enough to kill them. Buzzing. After they were sucked into the door, Luli saw a white glare. He found himself in a hall. The hall was spacious and empty. Groups of people gathered here. There should be more than 1,000. There were all kinds of people. Clearly they had just ascended. Buzzing. A door in the hall glowed. Buchienya and the others walked in. Buchienya took a look. Some people were talking, but they all quieted down. "We have accomplished our mission. We are about to set off for the mountain of vicissitude." Chapter 1208. On the vast land, the crimson glow of the blood moon illuminated the land, making the desolate land even colder and more desolate. A giant beast was flying silently. This giant beast's entire body was blue, and it exuded a metallic texture. Under the glow of the blood moon, the blue and red glow formed a halo, which was breathtaking. The beast was fast. If Luli were outside, he would have been frightened. The beast could cover 3,000 miles in the time for one breath, much faster than Luli. Luli was in the belly of the beast. But the inside of the beast of the void was different. Luli did not feel like he was in the belly of the beast. Instead, he felt he was sitting in a castle. There was no tremor in the beast of the void. Luli had been in the beast of the void for 5 or 6 days. Through Buchenya's explanation and some other immortals who knew something about the divinity, Luli had gained a basic understanding of the divinity. The newly ascended immortals enjoyed a low status in the divinity. The divinity was dangerous. 9 out of 10 would die in the wild beasts outside the cities in the divinity. Regular immortals would not survive in the wild beasts outside the cities in the divinity. Therefore, Buchenya gave them 3 choices. As a matter of fact, there were only 2. One was to serve at the Vicissitude House, earn divine sources, and become a citizen of the Vicissitude House. The second was to join the Vicissitude House. Most people gave up on the idea of joining the Vicissitude House when they learned the details. To join the Vicissitude House, they had to be a servant for 1,000 years. In other words, they had to be a slave of the Vicissitude House for 1,000 years. During the 1,000 years, if they could not improve their abilities, they would not be qualified to become a prefecture warrior. They would have to remain as a servant. Servants were servants of the gods. Naturally, they had to do the work of a servant. If the master was not satisfied, the master could beat, scold, or torture them to death. They were immortals who had just ascended. In the mortal world, they were at the peak. How could they be willing to be slaves? How could they put their lives in someone else's hands? Therefore, they had only one choice: to serve at the mountain of vicissitude for a year. After becoming a citizen, one would be able to move about freely and roam the city. Those who could ascend to become gods were all intelligent and quick-witted people. Before figuring out the situation clearly, serving in the Pale Flame mountain range for a year was the best choice. A year's time wasn't a long time. It was just enough time for him to familiarize himself with the situation in the immortal world, adapt to life there, and have a plan for his future development in the immortal world. There were more than 1,000 people in the hall. Apart from Luli and the others were brought here from the ascending cliff of nearby prefectures. The southern prefectures of the divine world seemed to have an agreement that every prefecture would receive new people for a certain period of time. This way, there would be a constant flow of new people. Luli had been sitting in a corner. He seemed to be resting, but in fact, he had been eavesdropping on the new immortals in the hall. Some of them had ancestors who had come to the divine realm before, or were in the divine realm right now. They had some understanding of the divine world. They knew a lot about the divine world. The immortal world was divided into various prefectures, and the prefectures were the most powerful forces within the prefectures. The prefectures had the most powerful forces, a large number of prefectures, and the best resources. That being said, there were many other forces and sects in the prefectures, as well as some hidden branches. Some sects were developing quietly instead of contending for hegemony. The overall situation was complicated. The average immortals did not know the details. One thing was for sure. The four forces mentioned by the deaf Taoist were powerful. Over the past few days, Luli had heard the names of the four forces for more than 100 times. Spacetime Office, Craftsman's Sect, Cabinet of Mystery, and Hall of Life and Death. The four forces were supreme forces that ruled over all prefectures. They were the most powerful forces in the divinity. Even a prefecture master that offended the four forces would be destroyed in an instant. Luli heard something that interested him. Spacetime Office controlled space and time. As long as one had enough divine sources, the Spacetime Office could send one anywhere. In other words, as long as Luli had enough divine sources, he could go to Spacetime Office and ask them to send him back to the mortal world, to the Earth Wasteland universe. Of course, to go back to the mortal world, the price would be high. The divine sources would be exorbitant. Even the almighty beings of the God world would not be able to support such a huge expenditure unless one could reach the strength of the super almighty beings of the God world. The realms in the divinity were vague, which confused Luli. In the Heaven Reverse universe, there was a clear hierarchy. But after reaching the immortal realm, there was no such thing. The only standard to distinguish one's strength in the God realm was the God list. Those who did not enter the God list were ordinary deities. Those who could enter the God list could be considered experts. Those who entered the top 100,000 of the divine list were almighties of the divine realm. Those who could make it into the top 10,000 were all super almighty beings of the immortal world. Even if they did not own a prefecture, they would at least be a top-notch expert in their prefecture. It would be easy for them to establish their own sect. Above the supreme almighty of the deity world were the supremes of the deity world. They had to enter the top 100 of the God list. Every single paragon of the God world was a figure who stood proudly in a region. They were the pinnacle of the God world, able to move unhindered through the God world, calling the wind and summoning the rain. Suppressing a prefecture was a piece of cake for them. Once you become a supreme being in the immortal world, you can even become an esteemed guest of the four transcendent powers. Even the manor heads will have to kneel before you. Ha ha, my great-grandfather is at the residence of devils and he is a patriarch of the prefecture. You may not know this, but the master of the residence of devils used to follow a supreme being in the divinity. Now that supreme being has joined the Hall of Life and Death, one of the four transcendent powers. My great-grandfather knows where I am going to ascend. Soon, he will send someone to pick me up. Guys, work hard at the mountain of vicissitude. If you have the chance, come to the residence of devils and look for me. If I can take care of you, I will not say no. My great-grandfather said that he will ask the master to take me to that supreme being in the divinity. If I can be his protégé, I will be rich. Not far away from Luli, a green-haired young man was talking with pride. The other immortals were envious of him. The green-haired young man was arrogant and he might be bragging. However, with his ancestor in the divinity, the green-haired young man's future would be easier. He would not have to worry about death at any time. Supreme being in the divinity? The image of a white-haired young man came to Luli's mind. He was excited. The Slayer might be a supreme being in the divinity. Luli had learned the Slayer's move. If he could continue and reach the same level as the Slayer, then he would be able to travel across the divinity, find Lu Ling, and return to the Earth Imperial Universe. Roar! Right at that moment, from outside came a shocking roar. The roar scared many immortals in the hall. Some of them felt weak in their legs and fell to the ground. Others were in pain. Lu Li trembled. At the same time, he felt a surge of energy surging into his soul. But it was absorbed by the silver dragon mark, so he was not affected. Out of instinct, Lu Li tried to use psychic power to check. Due to the inhibition formation in the hall, his psychic power could not go out. Now he could. Buqianya's emotionless voice was heard in the hall. Don't panic. It is just an Earth-level wild beast. I have deactivated the inhibition formation on the Beast of the Void. You can observe the fight with the wild beast in case you don't know how you will die in the future. Okay. Buqianji, Buhongyu, go and kill this wild beast. Whoosh. Chapter 1209. They used psychic power to check where the two warriors were and saw something horrifying. Lu Li was taken aback by what he saw. In the mountains in the distance, a huge beast was entrenched. If the beast did not move, it would be no different from a mountain. In the 9 universes, a beast of 1 or 2,000 feet would be the limit. Even the dragon demon was only 2,000 feet long. The beast in front of them was 1,000 feet long and hundreds of feet tall. It was no different from a mountain. The size of the beast didn't mean anything. The most important thing was its appearance and aura. That beast had 2 blood moon-like eyes. When many people's divine perceptions swept past those 2 eyes, they actually felt a piercing pain in their soul spirit. Some even cried out in pain. Immortal souls had been transformed and their souls were formed. However, just by looking into the beast's eyes, their souls were hurt. It was not hard to imagine how powerful this wild beast was. On the beast's head were 2 sawtooth-like horns. Looking from afar, the horns looked like 2 relic weapons. The back of the beast was covered with the same sawtooth-like horns. The sawtooth-like horns gave off a chilly energy. Everyone had a feeling that if they were hit by the sawtooth-like horns, even their relic armors would be pierced through. Just now, at the foot of the ascending cliff, only half of the beast's head was exposed. Therefore, the warriors did not feel it so strongly. Now, the wild beast was fully exposed in front of them, and it was full of energy. Everyone was frightened. The excitement and joy of ascending to the divinity suffered a heavy blow. What Lu Li felt was the same as when he first met the Beast King at the Northern Desert. He felt that he was so small, so weak. Buqianya said that this was just an average wild beast. How strong would a real wild beast be? Unimaginable. Whoosh, the 2 blue-armored soldiers flew over. Compared to the gigantic desolate beast, it was like comparing a human to a housefly. Their size brought about a strong visual conflict. What was more, the 2 of them dashed toward the beast fearlessly, determined to kill it. The blue armors they were wearing were clearly relic armors. They held 2 blue spears in their hands, identical. It looked like Blue Flame Manor was the one who forged and distributed these divine armors and weapons. This was probably one of the benefits of a manor soldier. The 2 of them dashed toward the beast, one on the left and the other on the right. Lu Li and the others followed closely with psychic power. How could they miss such a good opportunity to learn? Hiss, one of them turned into an afterimage and disappeared. He turned into a blue spear shadow and pierced through the left side of the huge beast. The other person chose to restrain the beast from the front. The long spear in his hand trembled, and a blue flood dragon roared towards the beast. Lu Li was surprised. The blue-armored warrior's attack didn't cause any tremor in space. It didn't seem to be particularly magnificent or shocking. It was just an ordinary attack. Swish, swish, swish. On the other hand, the desolate beast's attack was rather majestic. 7 or 8 of the sawteeth on its body detached from its body and shot out at high speed. Wherever the sawteeth passed, ripples would appear in the space, spreading out in all directions like water ripples. When it swung its tail in the air, it could also cause spatial fluctuations. Well, the space in the divinity is so stable. This wild beast can make space tremble? Impressive. It is said that unless one is as powerful as a mighty warrior in the divinity, one cannot make cracks in space. Someone near Luli exclaimed. Luli understood now. It was not that the two prefecture warriors were weak, but that the space in the divinity was too stable. It made sense. In the mortal world, the larger the world, the more stable the space would be. It was said that the divinity was boundless. It was hard to imagine how stable the space in such a large place could be. So fast. That person shouted again. Luli checked with psychic power. The blue-armored warrior that was fighting in front of him was already moving in the air at a horrifying speed to dodge the sawteeth. The sawteeth did not disappear after they were shot out. They would come back soon and chase after the prefecture warrior at the same speed. That being said, the blue-armored warrior's sudden burst of speed amazed everyone. At the critical moment, he could always dodge by a hair's breadth. Bang! The other blue-armored soldier had already succeeded. His body shot out from the other side of the beast's body, directly piercing through the beast's body. Roar, roar! The beast was enraged. More sawteeth flew out and the beast swung its tail. Still, the beast was attacking the warrior that was fighting in front of it. The other person turned around and once again turned into an afterimage as he stabbed towards the giant beast. This wild beast is not smart. It is as smart as the dragon demon, or even weaker. Luli nodded to himself. He had figured out the tactics of the two prefecture warriors. One of them was fighting in the front while the other was attacking from the side. Wild beasts were not smart and they were huge in size. It was difficult for them to move and dodge. They could wear it out easily. The prefecture warrior that was fighting in the front was fast, and the prefecture warrior that was attacking from the side was powerful. The two of them worked together seamlessly. They must have fought against wild beasts often because they were calm. While observing, Luli and the others wondered how they should fight when they encountered wild beasts. However, they realized that there was nothing they could do. Their attacks could not break the wild beast's defense, and they could not dodge the sawteeth. Chapter 12:10. In the next 10 days, they ran into more Earth-level wild beasts. Every time, Buchienya would stop the Beast of the Void and send the two prefecture warriors to fight. The following battles were not worth watching. The two warriors used the same method to kill the wild beasts. One would distract the wild beasts from the front and the other would launch a surprise attack from the side. The wild beasts were not intelligent. The prefecture warrior who would distract the wild beasts from the front was fast, and the surprise attack from the side was strong. The cooperation between the two was always successful. They could kill the wild beasts easily. Half a month passed in the blink of an eye. The Beast of the Void arrived at a huge mountain range and stopped. Buchienya's voice resounded in the hall. All of you, get out. This is the last chance for you to choose. If you want to explore the divine world, you can leave later. After you enter the Mountain of Vicissitudes, you must serve for a year. A door in the hall was opened slowly. They came out one by one. When Luli stepped out, he found himself in midair. A strange force enveloped him and made him fall down quickly. He tried to steady himself and fight against that strange force. Even so, he was falling fast. Luli stabilized himself so that he would not fall on his face. Wow! Shouts of surprise came from all around. Luli suddenly looked back and saw something that shocked him to the core. In the distance was a huge mountain. The peak of the mountain was so high that it reached the clouds. That was not surprising. What was shocking was that, outside the mountain, there were purple thunderbolts falling from the sky to the ground. The thunderbolts did not vanish in a flash. They were there all the time. They were like huge chains of thunderbolts, connecting the sky and the earth and surrounding the mountain. This is the chain of thunderbolts. An immortal who knew the divinity explained, this must be built by a super warrior in the divinity to protect the mountain of vicissitudes and to prevent outsiders from entering. There must be some treasures in the mountain of vicissitudes. Otherwise, why would such a powerful formation be built? The thunderbolts are horrifying. They must be hundreds or thousands of times stronger than the strongest thunderbolts in our world. If we get hit, I'm afraid we'll be smashed to pieces, right? Let alone you, even the mighty beings of the immortal world wouldn't dare to barge in. This was built by the super experts of the Blue Flame Manor. Many people were very excited and curious. After all, this was the place they would be staying in for a year. It was also the first place they would be staying in since they came to the immortal world. Luli had always been a man of few words and never talked to others. At the moment, he was standing there in a low profile. He also wore a black cloak to cover his white hair and most of his face. After all, white hair was too conspicuous. Whoosh, the void beast in the sky opened its mouth, and Buchinya flew down with the 9 blue-armored prefecture guards. He arrived in front of the crowd and glanced at them coldly. Since no one wants to leave, then follow me in. He silently led the team towards the mountain range in the distance, and the others quickly followed. The closer they got to the mountain range, the more oppressive they felt, and many people's breathing quickened. Luli was getting closer and closer to the purple thunderbolts as well. He felt his hair was standing on end. He sensed a fatal danger in his soul, telling him to stay away from those thunderbolts. When they were about 300 feet away from the thunderbolts, some of them felt weak in their leg. There would be 1 thunderbolt every 30 feet. Theoretically speaking, they should be able to walk through the gaps between the thunderbolt. However, none of them dared to do so. They all knew that they would die if they did so. Wheel of Devastation. Buchinya stopped at this moment. He took out a wheel and threw it into the sky. The wheel grew in size and turned into a huge wheel with a radius of 2 miles. Go! The roulette flew towards the lightning and blocked dozens of lightning bolts in front of it. Dozens of purple lightning bolts struck the roulette and were silently absorbed by the roulette. Let's go! Buchinya waved his hand and took the lead. The others held their breaths and followed him. Seeing that Buchinya had gone through the chains of thunder, the others hurried to catch up. Luli was in the middle of the team. After he went through the chains of thunder, he saw a glare. The view in front of him changed completely. He was in a huge valley. There must be a teleportation formation in the chains of thunder. Otherwise, I cannot have arrived here so quickly. Luli thought to himself. He looked around and realized that the valley should be in the middle of the mountains. The chains of thunder were hanging down from the sky. They were at least 3,000 miles away. If they were not teleported here, how could they have arrived here in one step? The valley was large. Surrounding it were mountains that reached the clouds. Around the valley were caves that must have been dug out by humans. There were also some castles in the valley. Teams of blue-armored warriors were walking around. There were also immortals walking in and out of the castles. The arrival of Luli and the others did not attract much attention. Usually, people just threw them a glance and then ignored them. Whoosh, from the distance came a team of blue-armored warriors. The one at the front was strong and dignified. He was wearing a blue armor, but there was a mark of a sharp blade on his chest. Buchinya and the others put on solemn expressions. When the team arrived, Buchinya and the other 9 bowed and said, "Greetings, Commander Yi. We have been ordered to pick up the newcomers and serve here." "Good. Thank you, Guide Bu." Commander Yi nodded. He waved his hand and said, "Go and have some rest." A blue-armored warrior led Buchinya and the others to a castle. Commander Yi glared at Luli and the others coldly and said, "I am Yi Guangyao and I am the commander here. You must keep everything I say in mind. Don't blame me if you die." Everyone listened carefully. They had to be humble when they were under the eaves. If they offended prefecture warriors, their deaths would be in vain. Pointing to the cave in the distance, Commander Yi said, "Before you are allowed to leave the Mountain of Vicissitudes, you can only walk in the Valley of Vicissitudes and in the mines. If you dare to trespass into other areas, you will be killed. Secondly, you are not allowed to use force in the Valley of Vicissitude. You must report everything. Those who use force without permission, you will be killed. Thirdly, you must hand in all the spring gold you find. Those who hide it will be killed. Fourthly, you must hand in 10 pieces of spring gold every month. If you cannot complete the task, your service time will be extended by 1 year. Those who do not agree, you will be killed." Commander Yi uttered the word "killed" 4 times in a row. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. The last point made many people's faces clouded. Every month, they had to hand in 10 pieces of spring gold. If they could not, their service time would be extended by 1 year? If they could not hand in the spring gold, wouldn't they have to serve here for the rest of their lives? So, spring gold is not easy to find. Luli looked at the warriors in the distance who were in a hurry, listless, and even numb. There was no spirit in their eyes, and there was no spirit in them. They must have served here for many years. It was possible that they could not complete the task. Could this year of service be a trap? Chapter 12:11. 1,000 people lived in a huge castle. Each of them was given a small room of less than 10 square feet. They felt like animals in captivity. A prefecture warrior gave each person a small black pickaxe and told them how to dig for spring gold and the tricks to find it. You will be given 10 pieces of spring gold per month. You can get 100 divine sources for every extra piece. Of course, you can save it and hand it in next month. But when your service time is up, all the spring gold must be handed in. Anyone found hiding spring gold will be killed without mercy. Do not snatch other people's spring gold. Once caught, you will be killed without mercy. The prefecture warrior left after the instructions. The warriors gathered in the hall of the castle, chattering away. Some had already left the castle to gather information. Luli did not take action right away. He waited quietly. Several people went out to gather information. Soon, they would have news. Sharpening the axe would not delay the work. They must figure out the situation first. Guys. An hour later, a dark-skinned old man came in. As soon as he came in, he said solemnly, "The Mountain of Vicissitudes is indeed a trap. Many people have been serving here for hundreds of years. Spring gold is not easy to dig out. If you are lucky, you can finish a month's work in a few days. If you are unlucky, you can't find 1 piece for month." Luli and the others felt their hearts weighed down. If they could not find 1 piece for months, wouldn't they be serving here indefinitely? The Vicissitudes house had a good plan. They wanted the newly ascended immortals to do hard labor for them for free. Also, be careful. The old man warned. It is true that we cannot use force in the Valley of Vicissitudes. But the mines are deep. Some of them are tens of millions of feet underground. The higher-ups will not know if you fight in the mines, and the prefecture warriors will not interfere. There are often people working together to snatch the spring gold. I suggest we work together and form teams to dig together. If someone tries to snatch the spring gold, we can protect ourselves or else we will be killed easily. Many people immediately echoed the little old man's word. They were not familiar with each other. Nevertheless, they had ascended together and entered the Mountain of Vicissitudes together. There was some camaraderie. If they could work together, they would not be bullied and they could protect themselves. All right, let's form a group of 50. If others bully us, we'll help each other out if we encounter them. Everyone working together is strength, and no one can bully us. The group of people chattered non-stop, and the discussion was in full swing. Many people began to take the initiative to organize. An immortal of the beasts walked toward Luli, asking him to join his team. Luli thought about it and chose to decline. Not joining the party. We won't care if you're hunted down later." The immortal of the beasts threw Luli a mocking glance. Many others looked over with sarcasm. They did not like Luli at all. Luli was young. He had been sitting with his legs crossed on the way to the vicissitude house, and never talked to anyone. Many people had already noticed him. At this moment, Luli actually chose not to team up with them. In everyone's eyes, Luli was an arrogant person, so they naturally didn't have a good impression of him. Luli didn't say a word and just stood there silently. He didn't team up with the others because it was inconvenient. Another point was, would it really be safe to form a team? Can teammates be trusted? Not necessarily. They came from different universes and did not know each other well. Who could tell if someone would stab you in the back? In this strange world, for the time being, Luli didn't want to trust anyone. He wanted to rely on himself. It was not that he had no trump cards. The Deaf Taoist and the Immortal's body were his trump cards. When faced with average immortals, Luli could still fight them. Soon, people in the castle were divided into many groups. They walked out in a hubbub, ready to explore the mines. Immortals were full of energy. They didn't need to rest or adapt. Soon, more than half of the people in the spacious hall had left. Luli noticed that there were others like him who didn't team up. They just watched as the teams left. Rustle, rustle, rustle. When Luli was about to go out, a purple-haired young man with a gloomy temperament came over. He cupped his fists and said in a low voice, "I am Suzishi, from the Grand Martial Universe. I don't trust those people. You are strong. I want to team up with you." Luli raised his eyebrows, surprised. He was an immortal who had just ascended. How could this Suzishi say he was strong? Luli blinked and asked, "I have just ascended and the fundamental principle I learned is average. Why do you say I am strong?" "I don't know." Suzishi shook his head. Then, he looked at Luli with great interest and said, "It is just a hunch. I feel that you are the most powerful among all of us. Following you is the right choice. My hunch has always been accurate." "Ha ha!" Luli burst into laughter. He himself was not so confident, but this Suzishi seemed to have faith in him. Luli shook his head and refused. "I am sorry. I don't team up. I work alone." "Okay," Suzishi said with pity. "Can you tell me your name? I hope we can be friends in the future." "Li-Lu." Luli said his name in reverse, using 2 homophones. With that said, he walked out of the castle on his own. He picked a random mine and went in. The mine was large, with a width of 2 miles. The walls were made of some kind of black stone. People were coming in and out in a hurry. Luli walked along the mine. The mine extended downwards. Dozens of miles later, he saw several forks. Luli picked one and moved on. He used psychic power to check the surroundings, looking for spring gold. Of course, he knew that there was no spring gold here. If there were, it would have been dug out. Along the way, Luli saw many potholes on the walls. Clearly, someone had dug them out. Luli's psychic power was strong. Even though the space in the divinity was stable, he could still sense within a radius of tens of thousands of miles. However, the black stone in the mine could affect psychic power. Luli could only go as far as thousands of feet. Beyond that, he could not see. Along the way, he saw forks. The mine was getting smaller. It must have been dug out. Luli wondered how long the mountain of vicissitudes had existed and how many people had excavated it. There were mines and traces of excavation everywhere. After an hour, Luli felt he had covered at least tens of thousands of miles. Still, he didn't find any spring gold. Along the way, Luli did run into many people. He saw some teams, but they were in groups of several. They glanced at Luli and then left in a hurry without paying attention to him. It is like an ant's nest down here. Luli was getting dizzy from all the twists and turns. He just didn't care anymore and kept going down. There must be no more spring gold in the mines up there. How could there be more when so many people were searching? Someone is here. Spring gold. Another hour later, Luli found a man in a small mine. He used psychic power to check, and it just so happened that this man had dug out a piece of spring gold. Piss off! Chapter 12:12. Luli did not have the thought of robbing others of spring gold. But he did not like the man's tone. After the time for one breath, Luli decided to keep a low profile and walked into the distance. The divinity was full of powerful immortals. Luli would not make trouble if he could avoid it. It was not like there was a feud that could not be resolved. Luli walked on for more than a dozen miles. He realized that there were too many caves at the Mountain of Vicissitude. This place was like an underground palace. But the further he went, the fewer people there were. He had been walking for the time for several incense sticks to burn without running into anyone. Luli used psychic power to check. Making sure that nobody was around, he took out the wicked bead. The deaf Taoist appeared in front of him. "How is Little White?" Luli put away the wicked bead and asked. The deaf Taoist nodded. "Basically, she is fine. But she needs to be fed with a divine source every 5 days. To fully recover, she will need good pellet." The deaf Taoist looked around. His eyes glowed. "Lord, you are in the divinity? Where is this place?" "Vicissitude's house, Mountain of Vicissitudes. I need to serve here for a year to mine spring gold," Luli explained. The deaf Taoist trembled. He was overjoyed. His voice trembled as he asked, "Lord, are you sure it is spring gold?" "Yes." "What is it?" Luli asked with a frown. "This is good." The deaf Taoist drooled. "I once heard about spring gold. It is a top-level material that only powerful warriors of the Asmodean realm can enjoy. One piece of spring gold can be traded for many materials in the region of Doom. It seems to be very useful for us beasts. If I can have some spring gold, I might be able to heal my wounds and restore my abilities to the peak. Maybe I can even become more powerful." "Ah!" Luli was surprised. Then, he was overjoyed. He did not expect to be so lucky. Luli asked at once, "Deaf Taoist, how powerful will you be when you are at the peak? Can you be compared to warriors on the list?" "Of course not," the deaf Taoist rolled his eyes. "Lord, do you think it is so easy to get on the list? There are billions of immortals in the divinity, but there are only 1,000,000 on the list. Only powerful immortals can make it on the list. If he joined any prefectural army, he would be a commander-level expert. My combat power isn't too strong at its peak, but it shouldn't be a problem to deal with ordinary deities." "Commander? Is Commander Yi an expert on the divine list?" Luli thought to himself. Commander Yi was horrifying. Even warriors on the list were so strong. How strong would Yen Tiangang be? It was unimaginable. If he was targeted by Yen Tiangang, he would probably be killed instantly. There would be no chance for him to survive. Let's go find the Qingyang gold." Luli waved his hand and led the deaf Taoist forward. First, they would find a piece of spring gold to see if the deaf Taoist could consume it. If he could recover his peak strength, he would be very safe in the mine, and he would not be afraid of other gods killing him. Commander Yi said that he couldn't keep Qingyang gold for himself, but he didn't say that he couldn't refine it, right? Perhaps even ordinary gods wouldn't be able to refine it. Otherwise, Commander Yi would have clearly stated that it wasn't allowed. They hurried on. Soon, they ran into a team. Luli and the deaf Taoist stood on the side, keeping a low profile. That team threw them a glance but did not pay any attention. Along the way, the deaf Taoist's psychic power was stronger than Luli's. He could see more than 2 miles into the walls. What frustrated them was that they had been running for 2 hours and they had covered a long distance. Yet, they did not find one piece of spring gold. "How about we find a small mine and dig our way in?" In many places, Luli found that there were people digging in and opening up new tunnels. After all, those tunnels were dug by the old warriors. Even if there were spring gold, it would have been taken away. Sure. The deaf Taoist agreed. They searched around and found a remote tunnel. They snuck in and blocked the tunnel with rock. Bang! At the depth of the mine, Luli picked up the pickaxe given to him by prefecture warriors and smashed at a black rock. With a muffled sound, a piece of black rock was dug out. Not bad. The black rock was not particularly hard. Otherwise, Luli would not know what to do. He threw the pickaxe to the deaf Taoist and said, "Go ahead. I will cultivate." Okay. The deaf Taoist nodded but said nothing. He was Lu Li's spiritual beast, a slave. How could he disobey Lu Li's orders? Bang bang bang. The deaf Taoist picked up the pickaxe and dug quickly. The rocks were dug out and smashed into dust. Lu Li sat in a corner and took out the wicked bead to check on Little White. Making sure that Little White was fine, he began to cultivate. He had learned the fundamental principle of wind, but he had not mastered it completely. During the last few months before he ascended to the immortal world, he had been with the others and did not have the time to stabilize his realm. Now that he had the time, it was a good chance for him to do so. The deaf Taoist was digging fast. He did not dig out a large tunnel, only one with a width of 2 to 3 feet. The deaf Taoist was strong. He wielded the pickaxe like a windmill. In the time for 3 incense sticks to burn, he had dug out a depth of more than 1,000 feet. It was a pity that there was not one piece of spring gold. That being said, if he could find spring gold just by digging out a tunnel of more than 1,000 feet, then the task would be easy. Lu Li observed for a while and decided to leave the deaf Taoist alone. He would cultivate and let the deaf Taoist dig by himself. This was the reason why Lu Li didn't form a team. Since he had free labor, why not use it? It was a pity that there was only one pickaxe and the immortal's body was too frightening to be spotted. Otherwise, Lu Li would have let the immortal's body out as well. Half a day later, not one piece of spring gold was found. The tunnel had been dug for dozens of miles. The deaf Taoist did not give up. He kept on digging. "Lord, I have found it." A day later, the deaf Taoist's joyful voice echoed in the tunnel. Lu Li opened his eyes and flew over. When he reached the deaf Taoist, he saw a piece of metal the size of a palm in the deaf Taoist's hand at once. "This is spring gold." This palm-sized piece of rock was the same as the spring gold the prefecture warrior showed them. It was golden in color and there seemed to be colorful airflows flowing in it. It gave people a comfortable feeling. One look and Lu Li could tell that it was a piece of treasure. "Try and see if you can consume it. I will be your protector." Lu Li waved his hand. The deaf Taoist sat down in excitement. Lu Li stayed next to the deaf Taoist and used psychic power to check the surroundings at all times. Spring gold belonged to the vicissitude house. All spring gold must be handed over. The deaf Taoist would be executed once he was discovered to be consuming the spring gold without permission. Even the deaf Taoist might be killed along with the spring gold. "I can." A moment later, the deaf Taoist opened his eyes in excitement. He nodded to Lu Li gratefully. "Lord, please protect me. I will finish in 2 hours at most." Lu Li waved his hand. The deaf Taoist wrapped up the spring gold in the black air and began to consume it. Lu Li used psychic power to check the surroundings. Once he noticed any sign of trouble, Lu Li would tell the deaf Taoist to put away the spring gold. 2 hours later, the spring gold in the deaf Taoist's hand disappeared completely. The deaf Taoist opened his eyes, filled with excitement. He said with certainty, "Lord, I have recovered a bit. The spring gold is indeed a top-notch material. I will be able to recover to my peak after consuming 5 more pieces of spring gold." Okay. Keep digging. Chapter 12-13. This was a good start. However, Lu Li and the deaf Taoist were frustrated. For 12 days, they did not find one piece of spring gold. They even changed the direction of their digging. On the 8th day, Luli went to dig in person. Still, he found nothing. The black stones could affect psychic power. The two did not know where to find spring gold. They had to dig blindly. It was all up to luck. Back in the castle, the old man once said that if they were lucky, they could find enough spring gold for several months in a month. If they were unlucky, they could not find even one piece for months. Luli had to hand in 10 pieces of spring gold every month. He had only found one piece. He wanted to give some to the deaf Taoist so that the latter could recover his abilities. But now, it seemed that Luli could not finish his task, let alone give the spring gold to the deaf Taoist. At the end of the month, if Luli could not hand over the spring gold, his service time would be extended by 1 year. If he could not hand over the spring gold in 2 months, it would be extended by 2 years. If he could not finish his task, he might have to stay here for the rest of his life. Blood claw. Luli used his bloodline skill and clawed at the black stone. The stone was crushed into pieces. Luli nodded and said to the deaf Taoist, "Let's split up. It will be more efficient. Help me finish my task first." Luli did not want to stay here for the rest of his life. According to his plan, he would stay here for a year. After he became a citizen, he would find a way to get more divine sources. In the end, he would go to the Swords Mountain to find Emperor of Heaven Reverse. Emperor of Heaven Reverse was the master of the Swords sect, a mighty warrior in the divinity and an overlord. Finding Emperor of Heaven Reverse could help Luli improve his abilities and find Lu Ling more easily. Yen Tiangang was a mighty warrior in the divinity. Given Lu Li's current abilities, he could not defeat Yen Tiangang. There were also God of Wings, God of Barbarian, and God of Sorcerer. Luli was surrounded by enemies everywhere in the divinity. Only by finding Emperor of Heaven Reverse could Luli gain a firm foothold in the divinity and find a place to settle down. Only in this way could Luli develop quickly and plan slowly. Emperor of Heaven Reverse once said that when he came to the divinity and found the Swords Mountain, he would accept Luli as his protege. Luli admired Emperor of Heaven Reverse. He was the forefather of the Heaven Reverse universe. It was Luli's honor to be able to follow Emperor of Heaven Reverse. Luli and the deaf Taoist started to dig separately. They dug in different directions and after about 2 miles, they changed their direction and continued to dig separately. This way, their efficiency was indeed much higher. However, the results were not optimistic. After digging for 7 days, the two of them had only dug out 1 Qingyang gold. When Luli was about to put the spring gold into his interspatial ring, he realized he could not. The spring gold seemed to be special and could not be put into interspatial rings. Luli took out the wicked bead. This time, he could put the spring gold in easily. Luli thought to himself, so, his interspatial ring was not of the divinity. Could he not store spring gold in interspatial rings that were not from the divinity? It's been 19 days and there's only 1 Qingyang gold. Luli was troubled. He dashed into the wicked bead and checked on Little White. He fed it a divine source and then rubbed his head tiredly. "Master, are you in trouble?" The immortal's body suddenly moved. Luli heard Blood Fairy's voice in his mind. Luli looked up at the immortal's body. He nodded and told Blood Fairy about his troubles. Soon, Blood Fairy replied, "Master, do you want me to have a try?" "You?" Luli was surprised. He shook his head. "You cannot go out. The immortal's body is special. If you are discovered, you will be in big trouble." "Ha ha, the immortal's body does not have to go out," Blood Fairy said with a laugh. "I can control my tentacles to go out of the wicked bead. Let me see if I can go into the rocks. If I can help you find the spring gold." "Really?" Luli was cheered up. He dashed out of the wicked bead and said to the Blood Fairy, "Have a try." Buzzing, the wicked bead in Luli's hand glowed. Then, a blood-red shadow came out and reached out to the wall. Lu Li and the deaf Taoist checked with psychic power. Soon, they were delighted. They sensed with psychic power that a blood-red vine was extending and moving through the black rocks. In the blink of an eye, it had traveled a mile. Good! Lu Li was overjoyed. Soon, he came back to his senses and said, "Blood Fairy, be careful. Many people will use psychic power to check. Don't let them see you." Blood Fairy's vine moved downward at once. In the time for half an incense stick to burn, Lu Li heard a voice in his head. 2 miles to the lower left, there is one. Good. Lu Li was overjoyed. He told the deaf Taoist to dig in that direction. After 2 miles, they found a piece of spring gold. Good, good. The deaf Taoist was delighted. With the help of the Blood Fairy, digging for spring gold was a piece of cake. The Blood Fairy seemed to be able to extend her vines indefinitely. Searching for spring gold was a piece of cake. Lu Li was relieved. The Blood Fairy had done him a great favor. Later, if there was a good immortal's body, the Blood Fairy could help him find one. If worse came to worst, he would kill an enemy for the Blood Fairy when he was strong enough. Dig for 3 miles to the right and 1.5 miles down. There are 2 pieces of spring gold there. Keep digging. Dozens of miles ahead, there is one over there. Guided by the Blood Fairy, Lu Li and the deaf Taoist moved quickly. In just over a day, they had dug out 10 pieces of spring gold. They had completed their task for the month. Keep going. Both Lu Li and the deaf Taoist were excited, especially the deaf Taoist. Lu Li had completed his task for the month. The deaf Taoist could consume the rest of the spring gold to recover his abilities. Among the immortals, Lu Li was not strong. After all, he had just made the breakthrough. The immortal's body could not be revealed easily. The deaf Taoist knew that he must recover as soon as possible. Otherwise, if Lu Li was killed, the deaf Taoist would not survive either. The deaf Taoist was a creature from the region of doom. Average immortals could not find him, but prefecture warriors could. Once his identity was exposed, he would face death. Therefore, once a fight broke out, the enemies must be killed and the information must not be leaked. 8 hours later, Lu Li and the deaf Taoist stopped. The Blood Fairy went back into the wicked bead. In 8 hours, they had dug out 6 pieces of spring gold. The deaf Taoist could not wait to consume them. Lu Li sat on the side to protect the deaf Taoist. As the deaf Taoist consumed one piece of spring gold after another, Lu Li could clearly feel that the deaf Taoist's energy was growing. By the 4th piece of spring gold, the deaf Taoist's energy had already made Lu Li feel suffocated. What? When the 5th piece of spring gold was being consumed, Lu Li sensed a breeze of psychic power. He trembled and yelled, "Oh no, psychic power! It is the deaf Taoist!" Chapter 12-14. The 3 of them were average immortals. They must be laborers digging for spring gold. They were not in the same batch as Lu Li. They must have been serving at the Mountain of Vicissitudes for some time. The 3 of them did not seem to be young. They were old and feeble. The one at the front was a hunchbacked man with wrinkles on his face. His eyes were vicious, which made people uncomfortable. One of the other 2 was a middle-aged man and the other was an obese lady. She was a troublemaker, but she was wearing a red dress, which was disgusting. How dare you consume spring gold in private? The 2 of you sure have guts." The hunchbacked old man walked over. He stared at the deaf Taoist with his snake-like eyes and sneered. Before Lu Li and the deaf Taoist could say anything, the hunchbacked man continued, "If I report you to the prefecture warriors, I don't think you will live for more than 5 days." The deaf Taoist narrowed his eyes. He was afraid that the prefecture warriors would find out who he was. The 3 of them could not tell that he was from the region of doom. They might think that he was just an average beast. There must be some powerful people in the prefecture warriors. The deaf Taoist glared at Lu Li with murderous intent in his eyes, which surprised the 3. Luli was young and his energy was not strong. The three of them had thought that Luli was just the Deaf Taoist's follower. They did not know that Luli was the leader here. Luli remained emotionless and coldly asked, "What do you want? Let's get straight to the point." "Ha ha." The fat woman with a face full of sharpness laughed. Her sturdy balls trembled endlessly. It was very frightening. She glanced over to Luli's handsome face and said, "Bro, you know what to do. Give us your spring gold and you can play with me for a while. We will pretend that we saw nothing. How about that?" Play with me? Luli suddenly had the urge to throw up. He imagined the obese lady taking off her dress and her fat belly. He felt nauseous. Fighting back the urge to throw up, Luli said coldly, "Commander Yi has said that we cannot rob others of their spring gold. How dare you break the law?" "Ha ha ha." The hunchbacked man laughed. "You must be a newcomer to the Mountain of Vicissitudes, right? Do you know how many people die in the mines every year? Snatch? Blue Flame Manor's official army wouldn't care even if they slaughtered anyone in the mines. In this mine, the strong are respected, and the bigger the fist is the law." "Oh!" Luli was surprised. "Then," he said, "if so, why don't you go to hell? Deaf Taoist, kill them." Roar, roar, the Deaf Taoist's robe was torn apart. He grew taller but only to 10 feet. The tunnel was too short for him to transform completely. His body emitted billowing black gas, and his aura became extremely terrifying. After refining a few pieces of green sun gold, his battle prowess had recovered 80%, and he was much stronger than an ordinary deity. The hunchbacked old man and the other two were worried. Since the Deaf Taoist was here, they would not sit around and wait for their doom. The hunchbacked old man was the first to draw his weapon and charge at the Deaf Taoist. "You don't even have a single divine artifact. You've been in the god realm for so long. Isn't it a little too miserable?" Luli could tell that the three's weapons and armors were of inferior quality. They were not relics. He sneered. He took out a saber. It was not a relic, but a cold-edged saber, a quasi-relic. Swish, Luli waved his arm. A ray of crescent-shaped sword light whooshed out. Wind and clouds were stirred up. Xian Qi and heaven and earth gathered together. Luli's attack was aimed at the fat lady. This was the first time that Luli fought against an enemy since he became an immortal. In the prison of ice, he had tested the power of the Slayer's move. It was much stronger than before. However, since he came to the divinity, the power of the move seemed to be suppressed. When Luli swung his saber, there was only a ray of sword light that was 5 feet long. Retreat! The moment the fat lady saw the ray of sword light, she was taken aback. She screamed in terror. She took out a white jade shield and tried to step back. But soon, she realized that she could not move. The view around her had disappeared. Her sight was occupied by the world of blood. Bang! The Deaf Taoist and the hunchbacked old man were fighting. The Deaf Taoist did not take out his stone column. The space was not large enough for him to use it. The Deaf Taoist only used his fist to smash at the rod in the hunchbacked old man's hand. The Deaf Taoist had recovered a lot. His physical strength was many times stronger than Luli's. With one punch, the Deaf Taoist knocked away the old man's rod and then landed on the hunchbacked old man's chest. The armor on the hunchbacked old man cracked. He spat out blood as he was smashed away. Bang! Luli had succeeded as well. The white jade shield in the fat lady's hand cracked. Then, she was smashed away. Half of her body was covered in blood. Clearly, she was badly injured. These immortals are not that strong. Luli raised his eyebrows. He had thought that since he had just ascended, he must be the weakest. He did not expect that he could injure an immortal so easily. As a matter of fact, if Luli had used the wind-related fundamental principle, he would not have been able to injure the fat lady or even hurt her. What Luli used was the Slayer's fundamental principle, one of the 10 in the divinity. How large was the divinity? How many powerful warriors were there? How many fundamental principles? There was no way to calculate. One of the 10 fundamental principles. Even though Luli had just started, his power was still shocking. The Slayer's fundamental principle was not limited to one kind of attack, but 4. There was a ray of sword light, a soul attack, a force in heaven and earth, and a strange energy attack that could catch people off guard. Boom, boom, boom. The Deaf Taoist did not show mercy. He dashed over and punched at the hunchbacked old man's chest, not giving the latter any chance to react or fight back. Well, the Deaf Taoist's speed, strength and reaction should be better than mine. Luli nodded after a while. The Deaf Taoist was a creature from the region of Doom and was known for his physical strength. Luli's original abilities were good enough in the region of Doom. Now that he had recovered 80%, he could deal with an average immortal. The remaining strong man was hesitating. Luli and the Deaf Taoist had injured 2 of them in one move. Should he leave or fight to the death? Stop. Lords, we are wrong. We are as blind as a bat. We are willing to give up our spring gold. The strong man had made up his mind to fight to the death. However, the hunchbacked old man spoke first. The strong man was afraid to move again. The Deaf Taoist turned to Luli, only to see Luli wielding his saber and aiming at the middle-aged man. Go to hell. The Deaf Taoist knew what Luli meant. Luli would never show mercy to his enemies. Also, the 3 of them had found out that the Deaf Taoist was consuming spring gold. Once they reported it to the prefecture warriors, the consequences would be dire. Boom, the Deaf Taoist punched at the hunchbacked old man's head. Knowing that he was doomed, the hunchbacked old man took out a dagger and stabbed at the Deaf Taoist's chest. But the dagger only went in for 1 inch before the old man's head was crushed. Bang! Luli was successful as well. That middle-aged man was smashed away. Half of his body was tainted with blood. His bones could be seen. 1 move and he was seriously injured. Kill them all, Luli said coldly. The Deaf Taoist was surrounded by dark air. His eyes glowed red like 2 blood moons. Sneering at the fat lady, the Deaf Taoist said, "How dare you to covet my lord? Don't you know who you are? Go to hell." Chapter 12-15. 3 immortals were killed. Looking at the 3 corpses, Luli exclaimed in his heart. Once upon a time, when Luli knew nothing about immortals, he thought that immortals were omnipotent. Immortals could live forever and they could go wherever they wanted. They could kill hundreds of millions of lives with a single thought. They could topple mountains and overturn seas with a wave of their hands. They could punish and destroy the world. Later on, Luli learned that immortals were just humans who were relatively powerful. Maybe the more powerful immortals had unimaginable powers. That being said, regular immortals did not have such powers. At the very least, they were not immortal and omnipotent. Today, Luli and the Deaf Taoist had killed 3 immortals, and they did it easily. Looking at the 3 corpses, Luli felt it was unreal. How could immortals be killed so easily? Of course, everything was relative. If the 3 immortals had gone to the Heaven Reverse universe, they would have been powerful beings. They could easily kill hundreds of millions of civilians of the Heaven Reverse universe. For the average civilians, Earth Immortal Realm Warriors and Semi-God Realm Warriors were no different from immortals. For Luli, immortals were warriors of the same level as him. Immortals killing immortals was no different from him killing Yenjin at the Heaven Reverse universe. Burn the corpses. Luli came back to his senses after a moment. It was normal to kill in the mines, but they must not leave any traces. If they were found out, the prefecture warriors would come after them. The above-board rules could not be broken. The Deaf Taoist began to burn the corpses with black flames. Naturally, the 3's interspatial rings had to be taken. The Deaf Taoist handed the 3's interspatial rings to Luli. Lu Li checked them and realized that they were much more advanced than his own. There is a lot of spring gold. There were more than 20 pieces of spring gold in the 3's interspatial rings and many other miscellaneous items. Lu Li did not care. The 3 didn't even have relics. Naturally, they didn't have valuable treasures. Lu Li took out the spring gold and put away the 3's interspatial rings. The deaf Taoist burned the corpses and cleaned up the bloodstains on the ground. Let's go. No matter how hard Lu Li tried to cover up the traces, there would be some. Lu Li waved his hand and ran away with the deaf Taoist. They wandered around for an hour and found a remote cave. They dug in for more than 3 miles. Then, Lu Li stayed on guard while the deaf Taoist continued to consume the spring gold. 6 hours later, the deaf Taoist consumed another 2 pieces of spring gold. He opened his eyes, filled with excitement. He nodded to Lu Li and said, "Sir, my combat power has been restored to its peak, and my body is even stronger than before. If I can refine some more Qingyang gold, my battle prowess can continue to increase." I'll refine it later. Lu Li nodded. The deaf Taoist could not improve too fast or he would attract unwanted attention. If the news got out, the prefecture warriors would notice. The deaf Taoist was not a slave. He would be in big trouble. I will go back and hand in the spring gold. Go back to the wicked bead and stabilize your realm. The wicked bead could not be used here at will. Once the wicked bead was discovered, others would covet it. But Lu Li was worried about the deaf Taoist staying here. "No, Lord, I will go back to the space." The deaf Taoist shook his head. "If you encounter enemies, people will covet the wicked bead when you take it out. It will be normal for me to go in and out of the space. It is not unusual for immortals to have spiritual beasts in the divinity." "All right." Lu Li nodded. The deaf Taoist vanished into between Lu Li's eyebrows. A faint tattoo appeared between the deaf Taoist's eyebrows, which was the deaf Taoist's appearance. It had been more than 20 days since Lu Li went down to the mine. If he knew the way back, he could go back in half a day. But there were too many mines, and they were intertwined. Lu Li was afraid that he could not find the way back, so he had to go back earlier. What he did was right. He had been walking around for half a day and yet, he could not find the way back. He ran into some immortals who came in with him. But those immortals seemed to be prejudiced against him. None of them talked to him. Lu Li didn't care. He would go where he could. All he had to do was to go up. After more than a day, he finally found his way out of the mine. He was right. As long as he kept going up, the path would be the same. Sooner or later, he would be able to leave the mine and return to the Valley of Vicissitudes. He did not hand in the spring gold rashly. There were still a few days before the 1-month mark was up. If he handed in the spring gold now, it would be too eye-catching, and some people would remember him. Lu Li went back to his room in the castle and cultivated for a couple of days. He would only go out when the 1-month mark was up. Lu Li did not cultivate these days. Previously, he had been cultivating in the mine, but he did not know how to cultivate. He had been thinking about this question. Before he became an immortal, Lu Li knew the direction of cultivation, which was to learn fundamental principles. Now, he had learned 2 fundamental principles. He knew that the 2 fundamental principles could be evolved to a stronger state, but he did not know how to cultivate at the moment. Now, other than cultivating profound energy and now cultivating divine energy, he did not know how else to cultivate. When I have time, I should ask some powerful warriors in the divinity. It was about time. Lu Li stood up and walked out of his room. Many people had returned. Most of them were dejected. Clearly, they did not complete their task. "Brotherly Lu," a voice came. Lu Li looked to the left and saw a cold-looking brown-haired young man. It was Suzishi, who wanted to team up with him the other day. Suzishi walked over and called Lu Li's pseudonym. He had a friendly smile on his face. But because of his temperament, his smile turned cold. He cupped his hands and said, "Brother Li Lu, have you finished your task?" Seeing many immortals looking at him, Lu Li did not answer Su Zixi question. He said vaguely, "Not quite. I was thinking of something. Brother Su, have you finished?" "Yes." Su Zixi nodded slightly and said, "Brother Li Lu, how much do you need? If you need 2 or 3 more, I can lend them to you." Swish, 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 many immortals looked at him with burning eyes. Some of them came up and talked to Su Zixi with smiles on their faces. They wanted to trade for the spring gold with treasures or borrow the spring gold through their friendship. "Sorry, everyone. I am not familiar with you. Please help yourselves." Su Zixi's expression changed. He looked at the people who came up to him coldly. His attitude was completely different from how he treated Lu Li. The corners of Lu Li's mouth curled up into a faint smile. This Su Zixi was indeed an interesting person. He nodded at Su Zixi and walked out. Su Zixi shook off the crowd and walked out. After catching up with Lu Li, he said, "Brother Li Lu, I have 3 extra spring gold. If you need them, you can take them directly. You can give me more later." One who is unaccountably solicitous is hiding evil intentions. Lu Li thought for a while and realized that he had nothing worth Su Zixi's deception. It seemed that this strange person really wanted to be friends with him. He stopped and looked at Su Zixi in confusion. "Brother Su, why are you so nice to me? I don't deserve it. Tell me the reason, or I will be afraid." "Kiki." Su Zixi smiled mysteriously and said, "I will not hide it from Brother Li. I have a special mystical ability. I have a hidden third eye in my glabella. I can look at aura. In the whole valley, Brother Li's aura is the most prosperous. That means in the whole valley, Brother Li's future achievements will be the greatest. I am on good terms with Brother Li now. When Brother Li becomes successful, you can help me." Chapter 12-16. Fortune-telling? Lu Li frowned. Out of instinct, he looked between Su Zixi's eyebrows but found nothing. He remembered Astro Emperor's enigmatic smile. He asked, "Fortune-telling is the same as fortune-telling? Can fortune-telling tell a person's fate in advance?" "Not exactly the same." Su Zixi explained, "Fortune-telling can only tell a person's fortune for a short period of time. Those who are luckier will go further. You know, when a warrior reaches a certain level, luck and opportunities are of the utmost importance." "Alright." Lu Li shrugged. "Thank you, Brother Su. I have completed my task for this month. If I need your help in the future, I will ask for your help." "Ha ha, I knew it, Brother Li. You are so lucky. How can you not complete a small task?" Su Zixi grinned. He patted Lu Li's shoulder and said, "Let's go. Let's go in hand in our task." Lu Li moved his shoulder subtly and moved Su Zixi's hand away. It was hard for Lu Li to acknowledge someone. He would not burn incense sticks and become sworn brothers with Su Zixi just because of a few words. They walked toward a castle. Before they entered the castle, they had already attracted many people's attention. Those that could enter the castle were here to hand in their tasks, which meant that Lu Li and Su Zixi had collected enough spring gold. Inside the castle, there were 5 prefecture warriors sitting at 5 tables. 2 of them were handing in spring gold. Lu Li and Su Zixi went to a prefecture warrior respectively to hand in their tasks for this month. "Name, number." A prefecture warrior in front of Lu Li asked coldly. Lu Li asked with confusion, "What is the number?" "Your pickaxe has a number on it." "That is your number," the prefecture warrior answered coldly. Lu Li took out the pickaxe and reported, "Lord, my name is Li Lu, number 10,730. This is the spring gold I have to hand in this month." Lu Li took out the spring gold from his interspatial ring. He had consumed the hunchbacked interspatial ring. Otherwise, his own interspatial ring could not contain the spring gold. "Okay." The official guard put away the spring gold and waved his hand. You may leave. Come back next month. Suzushi was done as well. Luli was about to leave when an ugly prefecture warrior with triangular eyes on his right looked at Luli and said, "Wait." Luli turned around to look at that prefecture warrior. He noticed that the prefecture warrior was scrutinizing Luli in his triangular-shaped eyes. The prefecture warrior even threw a few glances at Luli's white hair. He was a little hesitant in his heart, but he respectfully bowed and said, "What can I do for you, sir? What's your name? Which realm did you come from before you ascended?" That person coldly asked. His expression was natural, as if he was just casually asking. Luli was surprised, but he did not hesitate. He answered honestly, "My name is Li Lu and I am from the Grand Martial Universe." Suzushi raised his eyebrows. He did come from the vast martial realm. Luli was lying. However, he didn't say anything, and his eyes didn't reveal anything special. Great martial realm? The glow in the prefecture warrior's triangular-shaped eyes grew sharper. A surge of energy was released, suffocating Luli. The prefecture warrior asked, "Are you sure you are telling the truth? Lying to me can lead to serious consequences." Luli cupped his fists calmly and said, "I dare not lie to you, sir. If I find out, The bird-eyed prefecture warrior snorted and waved his hand. "You can leave now." Luli cupped his fists and turned around. Suzushi followed him out. Outside the castle, Luli slowed down and listened to the voices inside. "Monkey, why did you ask about the universe that new guy came from?" Luli heard a question from inside. That bird-eyed warrior's voice came out as well. Clearly, he was laughing. "Nothing. I mistook him for someone else. I thought he was from the universe I ascended from." "I don't think so." Luli quickened his pace as he walked towards his own castle. His heart was sinking. Suzushi was smart. He said nothing and followed Luli in silence. "Brother Su, please keep this a secret for me. I owe you one." When they were about to enter the castle, Luli said to Suzushi in a low voice. Suzushi did not ask anything. He just patted Luli's shoulder and said, "Brother Li, you are welcome. Takes more than a day or two to make friends. A long journey tests the strength of a horse, and time reveals a man's heart. In the future, you will know that I, Suzushi, am a worthy friend. Do you want to come to my room?" Luli smiled. Suzushi nodded and followed Luli into his small room. The room was small with only a bed and a chair. Luli asked Suzushi to sit on the chair. He activated the inhibition formation in the room. Luli said nothing as he tried to recall the look and question of that bird-eyed prefecture warrior. It seems that Yen Tiangong's influence has reached this place. The more Luli thought about it, the more worried he became. How could a prefecture warrior ask him which universe he came from out of nowhere? Also, this bird-eyed warrior looked at Luli's white hair. Luli said that he was from the great martial realm, but this man did not believe him. Everything suggested that this prefecture warrior might have guessed Luli's identity, but he was not sure. That was why he asked. If it was Yen Tiangang who was looking for Luli, his portrait would be delivered soon. By then, Luli's identity would be exposed. "Brother Li, are you in trouble?" Seeing that Luli was silent, Suzushi asked with curiosity, "Is there an immortal that wants to hunt you down? Did you ask that prefecture warrior to confirm your identity?" Suzushi was smart. But those that could ascend to the immortal realm were all extremely smart. What happened just now, Luli's current demeanor, and the fact that Luli had lied. Therefore, Suzushi could infer something. "Yes, but I am not sure yet." Luli nodded. He did not tell Suzushi the truth. Instead, he asked, "Brother Su, how much do you know about the divinity?" Suzushi answered frankly, "Not bad. My great-grandpa is in the divinity now. He is a patriarch of a prefecture. It is a pity that his prefecture is far away. It will take him some time to get here." Another patriarch of a prefecture? Luli was surprised. He asked with curiosity, "Are there many patriarchs in every prefecture?" "Yes," Suzishi explained, "every prefecture has over 10,000 patriarchs. Any immortal that is on the list can be a patriarch of a prefecture. Mighty warriors in the divinity can be a patriarch in any prefecture. My great-grandpa is a mighty warrior in the divinity. He is ranked over 60,000 on the list. He is quite famous." "I am sorry." Luli was surprised. He did not know that Suzishi had such a background. Suzishi had been keeping a low profile. Luli never saw him boast about anything. There was an immortal in their batch that had ascended to the divinity. Suzishi shook his head. The glory of our ancestors belongs to our ancestors. If we rely on our ancestors for everything, what is the point of us ascending to the divinity? Why don't we just dominate our own universe? Brotherly, don't belittle yourself. Given your luck, it will be easy for you to become a mighty warrior in the divinity." Looking at Suzishi's sincere eyes, Luli said after some thoughts, "Brother Su, I have offended a mighty warrior in the divinity. That prefecture warrior might have been bribed by him to confirm my identity." I see." Chapter 12:17. The conversation with Suzishi gave Luli some confidence. Prefectures everywhere had strict rules. Normally, prefecture warriors could not kill for no reason. Of course, if it was not in the city or the Valley of Vicissitudes, it would be a piece of cake for prefecture warriors to kill someone in the wild. Things were relative. If one was more powerful than prefecture warriors and could kill a team of prefecture warriors in the wild without leaving any evidence, the prefecture would not be able to do anything. On the surface, everyone had to abide by the rules. After all, this was the dignity of a prefecture, the embodiment of the authority of a prefecture master. Anyone who disobeyed the rules would be challenging the authority of a prefecture master. Eventually, powerful warriors of the prefecture would retaliate violently. In other words, even if Yen Tiangang knew Luli was in the Valley of Vicissitudes, he would not be able to come in. At the very least, even if Yen Tiangang could come in, he would not have the courage to kill Luli. This was the Vicissitudes house, not the Black Dragon mansion. To kill Luli in the Valley of Vicissitudes would be to humiliate the chief of the Vicissitudes house. Even the top warriors of the Black Dragon mansion would have to die, not to mention that Yen Tiangang was just a town patriarch. Luli once said in the Divine Imperial Universe that the Black Dragon Mansion had over 1,000 town patriarchs. Actually, Luli was overestimating Yen Tiangang. In any prefecture, there would be over 10,000 town patriarchs. They were the backbone of a prefecture, not the top. According to Suzishi, the most powerful person in a prefecture was the chief, followed by the 10 deputy chief. They were the most powerful and the most powerful. Behind them were the 100 founding generals, the top of the prefecture. Then came the 10,000 town patriarchs. Below the town patriarchs were the commanders, such as Commander Yi of the Valley of Vicissitudes. Therefore, Yen Tiangang might be powerful. Given Lu Li's current abilities, Yen Tiangang might not be able to kill him. Yen Tiangang might be powerful in the Black Dragon Mansion as well. But outside the Black Dragon Mansion, Yen Tiangang was nothing. As long as Lu Li stayed in the wild, Yen Tiangang could do nothing to Lu Li. On the surface, Yen Tiangang could not break the rules. Even if he was sure that Lu Li was in the Valley of Vicissitudes, Yen Tiangang could only play some tricks. According to Suzishi, Lu Li only had to stay in the mines to prevent assassinations. Lu Li had an idea. Suzishi said that Lu Li only had to stay in the mines to prevent assassinations. In the God world, it was almost impossible for a person to achieve anything great. The God world is vast and boundless. There are many good spiritual mountains and blessed lands, but they are all occupied by the major powers. If you want to have a big development, it's better to join a power. You are here to persuade me. Luli was suspicious. He asked back, Brother Sue, do you have any good recommendations? My personal suggestion is to join a transcendent grade organization. To Luli's surprise, Suzy didn't try to persuade Luli to join the prefecture his ancestor was in. Instead, he recommended another force. You'd better not join a prefecture. It is hard to make a name for yourself there. My great-grandpa has been there for tens of thousands of years, and he has never made a name for himself. The suggestion he gave me was to find a super faction to join. Of course, it would be perfect if I could join one of the 4 transcendent god factions. It's a pity that not everyone can join the 4 transcendent god factions. On the surface, they don't recruit outsiders. If they discover that you have potential or your strength has reached a certain level, the 4 transcendent god factions will invite you to join. Luli had some understanding of the 4 super forces, but not the super forces. He asked, What is a super force? A super sect. Suzishi's eyes glowed. There are 72 major sects in the divinity. You can do whatever you want in the divinity if you join any one of them. Not even prefectures dare to provoke them. If you can join one of the 72 sects, you can have a meteoric rise in the divinity and do whatever you want. Luli made a mental note. The major sects were too far away for Luli to think about it. He just wanted to go to the Swords Mountain and find Emperor of Heaven Reverse before making other plans. But the 72 sects did pique Luli's interest. Astro Emperor once said that the force Lu Ling was in had the word "ana" in it. Lu Ling's force was powerful. Was it one of the 72 super forces? Luli asked, Brother Sue, do you know the name of the 72 sects? Is there one with the word "ana" in it? And I? Suzishi shook his head. I don't know the specific name. I think you will have to ask my great-grandpa. Okay. Luli thought of something else. Brother Sue, how do I cultivate after I reach the immortal realm? Your great-grandpa can tell you the general direction. That's easy. Suzishi explained, you can ask around. After the immortal realm, we cultivate origin fundamental principles and skills from the divinity. For skills from the divinity we need to find or buy books. We can't become immortals without learning fundamental principles. That being said, the origin fundamental principles we learned are of the lowest level, the original form of fundamental principles. There are 3 forms of fundamental principles. The first is the original form, the second is the realm of fundamental principles, and the third is the complete realm. At the complete realm, we can continue to cultivate. We can continue to cultivate. Luli was surprised. How could he continue to cultivate when he reached the complete realm? Ha ha! Suzishi calmly smiled and said, True meanings are separated into different grades. Under normal circumstances, the true meaning comprehended would be low-grade true meanings. After that, there are still mid-grade true meanings, high-grade true meanings, and transcendent-grade true meanings. When a fundamental principle reaches the complete realm, there are 2 options. The first is to integrate other fundamental principles and the second is to evolve it. Either way, the final goal is to evolve the lower-level fundamental principles to the higher level. That is the only way to become stronger. Lower level, middle level, high level, and supreme level. Luli nodded to himself. The Slayer's fundamental principle was so powerful. Could it be the supreme level? If so, when he reached the complete realm of the Slayer's fundamental principle, wouldn't his abilities soar at once? Well, one last question. Suzishi knew a lot. Luli decided to ask him everything. Brother Sue, are you at the 3rd plane of the divinity? Is this a strange place? Or what? 3rd plane of the divinity. Suzishi was stumped. He shook his head in confusion. I don't know. I think I will have to ask my great-grandpa. Thank you, Brother Sue. Luli bowed. Suzushi had told him a lot of useful information and helped Luli hide his secrets. Luli had acknowledged Suzushi. "You are welcome." Suzushi nodded with a smile. He understood that Luli needed some time to digest the information. Suzushi left without further ado. After Suzushi left, Luli sat in the room for half a day. He had a preliminary direction of cultivation. He had a skill, the method of stone golems, but he had not mastered the third level. Recently, he planned to cultivate the method of stone golems and read books on formations in his spare time. If he had time, he could study the secrets of the immortal's body. Emperor Z once said that he had the strongest body under the third plane of the divinity. There was a powerful body refinement skill in the immortal's body. Luli could study it when he had time. Luli rested for a day after he cleared his mind. Then, he left the castle and went to the mine. He planned to let the deaf Taoist dig for spring gold while he found a place to cultivate. What he did not know was, after he entered the mine, the triangular-eyed official soldier walked out of a castle and glanced at the 5 god spirit realm slaves. The 5 immediately followed him. Chapter 12:18. Something is not right. Soon, Luli noticed it. Clearly, someone was following him. He could hear footsteps, not too far away, but not too close. There were quite a number of people following him. Suzushi's prediction had come true. Those people did not come with good intentions. Luli was worried. He was not afraid of some average immortals, but he would be in trouble when there were too many of them. He was not wearing the relic armor. Even so, he could still be killed. Luli was still at the upper level of the mine. There were many people coming and going. Those people did not follow Luli because they were afraid that the information would be leaked. They must be waiting for Luli to get to the bottom of the mine before they take action. While Luli walked slowly, he thought quickly. Under the stimulation of life and death, his mind worked fast. Hundreds of ideas came to his mind at once. Blood Fairy. His heart skipped a beat, and he sent a message through the mental link with Blood Fairy. Blood Fairy's voice immediately responded, "Master, I'm here." Luli asked, "How is your control over the immortal's body? Have you improved your abilities? I am in big trouble and I need your help." The immortal's body should not be used at will. Luli had no other choice but to rely on the immortal's body. Blood Fairy replied, "I have not fully mastered the formations in the immortal's body. But compared to before, the immortal's body is at least 30 times stronger." 30 times? That is enough. Luli's eyes glowed. The immortal's body was already strong. He could be as strong as the deaf Taoist. Now that he was 30 times stronger, he should be able to defeat average immortals. "Okay," Luli said, "when I let you out, kill them at once. Do not let any of them escape or else we will all be in trouble." Blood Fairy had taken control of part of the formations in the immortal's body, which had increased his abilities. Luli's confidence was boosted. He no longer had to worry about anything and dashed into the mine. As he sped up, those behind him sped up as well. Luli listened carefully to the footsteps. There were 2 groups of people. 5 were the closest to him, followed by more than a dozen. Luli did not care about the direction or the route. He just had to go deeper into the mine. Half a day later, Luli had no idea where he was. Anyway, he could hardly see anyone here. He must be at the deepest part of the mine. "Come out, my friend behind me." Luli stood in a spacious area. He turned around and looked behind him. Soon, 5 people came out. They were all wearing relic armors and their eyes were filled with murderous intent. The 5 of them were all tall and burly, with gray hair and sharp ears. They didn't look old, but their faces were old-fashioned, and their faces were as cold as ice. Their bodies emitted a cold aura. "You are Li Lu? Soaring from the great martial realm?" one of them said. Before Luli could reply, He continued with a sneer, "You must be Luli. Not from the vast martial universe, but from the heaven reverse universe, right?" As expected, Luli put on a mocking grin. He had a clear understanding of Yen Tiangang. Apart from Yen Tiangang, no one else could be so capable. Only Yen Tiangang could collude with the official army and mobilize the divine slaves here to ambush him. It seemed that he had killed Yen Zhen and destroyed the Yen family, which had infuriated Yen Tiangang so much that he wanted to kill him at all costs. "I'm Li Lu, not Luli. I don't know what you're talking about," Luli said calmly, but he had some questions. There were more than a dozen behind him. Why didn't they come together? Were they not on the same team? Or, would the dozen come after him if the 5 of them could not kill him? The 5 of them were strong, but Luli was not afraid. What troubled him was, killing the 5 of them might not be a problem, but what about the dozen behind them? Once they ran away, the information about the Deaf Taoist and the Immortal's body would be leaked. After the time for one breath, Luli said, "What do you want? Just tell me." A gray-haired middle-aged man said, "We don't have anything important to do. We just want you to surrender and come with us." "Where?" Luli asked, knowing the answer. He sensed that the dozen in the distance had stopped. An idea came to him. "If you want to take me away, you must ask the brothers behind me if they are willing." A glint of coldness rose in the 5's eyes. They used psychic power to check. Luli was delighted. It seemed the 2 groups were not on the same side. He shouted at once, "Brothers, come out and do something. The 5 of them have hundreds of pieces of spring gold on them. It is enough for us to share." Luli's voice echoed in the mine. The 5 were taken aback. The more than a dozen in the distance knew that they had been exposed. They had to hurry over. Luli checked with psychic power. The more than a dozen ascended at the same time as him. Among them was the old man who went to collect information. At this moment, Luli understood something. He must have gotten the 10 pieces of spring gold for the mission easily. Those people were jealous. They followed Luli for 2 purposes. First, they wanted to see how Luli dug out the spring gold. Second, they wanted to snatch his spring gold. Ha ha ha. Having figured it out, Luli laughed and said, "Brothers, let's work together and kill the 5. They have more than 500 pieces of spring gold. We will share it. If the higher-ups want to hold us accountable, I will take full responsibility." None of the more than a dozen dared to move. After all, they had only been in the Mountain of Vicissitudes for a month, and they were not clear about the situation. Who could tell if the 5 had someone to back them up? What was more, the 5 were clearly strong. The 5 had just ascended, and they dared not to provoke them. These people were like rookies. Faced with 5 fierce veterans, they did not have the courage to fight recklessly even though they had the advantage in numbers. The 5 glanced over to the more than a dozen. Seeing that none of them moved, one of the 5 said with a mocking smile, "You want to fight against us? Do you know how many we have killed in the mine? We have been at the Mountain of Vicissitudes for nearly 1,000 years. We have killed at least 1,000 immortals. If you don't want to die, piss off." The relic armors on the 5 glowed. They took out various relic weapons. 2 of them even took out 2 tripods, which were spinning around them. Those must be some kind of strange artifact. The 5 were at the peak of their momentum. Their eyes were filled with killing intent. They were like 5 beasts that were ready to devour someone. The more than a dozen warriors felt uneasy. They were in a dilemma. You have one last chance. Piss off or die. A gray-haired strong man with a sawtooth steel saber stepped forward. The strong killing intent spread out. The more than a dozen warriors were in a panic. "We don't know him. Let's go." That old man waved his hand and left with the others. He dared not to stay any longer. Making sure that the more than a dozen warriors had left, the 5 looked back at Luli. One of them said, "We will give you one last chance. Either you surrender and come with us, or you die." Lu Li smiled. He had nothing to worry about now that the more than a dozen warriors had run away. A glow came out from between his eyebrows. The deaf Taoist appeared in front of him. Lu Li ordered coldly, "Deaf Taoist, do it. Kill them." "Roar, roar," the deaf Taoist cried into the sky. The space here was large enough for him to transform. He grew to more than 100 feet tall, surrounded by a dark air, emitting a strong killing intent. "What?" The 5 of them glared at the deaf Taoist coldly. They were afraid of the deaf Taoist's energy, especially the energy of a beast, which made them uncomfortable. "Charge!" The 5 of them dashed over and surrounded the deaf Taoist. A bloody fight broke out. Chapter 12-19. Lu Li did not want to rely on the immortal's body or the deaf Taoist for the rest of his life. He had just entered the divinity and had no place to settle down or means to protect himself. Lu Li was happy that the deaf Taoist and the immortal's body had improved. At the very least, his safety was guaranteed. Especially when Yen Tiangang was concerned about Lu Li's life. Now that there was the first ambush, there would be more to come. Both open and covert attacks would come. Without the immortal's body and the deaf Taoist, Lu Li would not be able to survive. Bang bang! Not long afterward, the other 2 immortals were killed as well. The deaf Taoist's attacks were too ferocious. The 2 immortals could not get away. Cremate the bodies. When the 5 immortals were killed, Lu Li dashed over and put away all the relic armors and weapons. The 2 small round tripods were put away just like the 5's interspatial rings. The immortal's body was put away in the wicked bead at once. The immortal's body could not be exposed to the outside world, or else it would be a disaster. The deaf Taoist poured out black flames and burned the 5 immortals together. The deaf Taoist dug a hole to bury the ashes. "Let's go." With that done, Lu Li and the deaf Taoist ran away. They found a small tunnel and went in. Then, they dug a tunnel and hid. What? In a castle in the Valley of Vicissitudes, a bird-eyed prefecture warrior was holding 5 jade talismans that suddenly exploded. His bird-eyed prefecture warrior was shocked. What is going on? Next to him was a prefecture warrior who was also wearing a blue armor. He should be a prefecture warrior of the Vicissitudes house. Dead. "The 5 I sent out are dead," the bird-eyed prefecture warrior said with doubt. "How can this Lu Li be so powerful? The 5 of them are experienced. They have been at the Mountain of Vicissitudes for nearly 10,000 years and never left. They have been plundering and bullying newcomers. How can they die in the hands of Lu Li? Long Shan, who is this Lu Li?" The prefecture warrior shook his head. "I don't know. Someone asked me to capture or kill him. How can a newly ascended immortal be so powerful? Li Chang, let me make it clear, if you cannot capture or kill Lu Li, you will only get 10% of the reward." "I know the rules." The triangular-eyed Li Chang sneered a few times. The muscles on his face trembled as he patted Long Shan's shoulder and said, "Long Shan, don't be anxious. I will arrange for a few more ruthless characters. How dare the laborers in the Valley of Vicissitudes disobey me? If there is no other way, I will think of a way to do it myself. I will definitely get these 1,000,000 divine roots. It would be best to capture them alive." Long Shan thought for a moment and said, "If we capture them alive and send them out of the Valley of Vicissitudes, the price will be 5 times higher. Why don't you take him out by force? He dares to disobey the order of the official army? This won't do." Li Chang shook his head and said, "It's not like you don't know Commander Ye's character. It's fine to do some little tricks in the dark, but if things get out of hand, I won't be able to bear the consequences of Commander Ye's wrath." All right. Long Shan nodded and said, "Then I'll leave the valley first and wait for you outside for a while." "Don't worry." Li Chang revealed a sinister smile and said, "He's just a newly ascended god. Isn't it easy to play him to death? If I don't kill him, my name isn't Li Chong. Lu Li did not know that the bird-eyed man was plotting against him. Lu Li and the deaf Taoist dug deeper. They only stopped after they had dug for over 100 miles. Deaf Taoist, take care of your wounds first. The deaf Taoist was injured when he was risking his life. Lu Li protected him so that he could recover. Lu Li even gave the deaf Taoist 2 pieces of spring gold, so that the deaf Taoist could consume them. The deaf Taoist recovered after half a day. This time, it was the deaf Taoist's turn to protect Lu Li because Lu Li was going to take control of a relic armor. Lu Li's physical body was not weak. But with the relic armor, his defense would be stronger. It seemed that the relic armor was hard to destroy. Not even the immortal's body could crack the relic armor. Relic armors and weapons were not that valuable. Of the 5 immortals, 5 had relic weapons and armors. Lu Li got 5 sets of relic weapons and armors and 2 artifacts at once. Deaf Taoist, do you need to take control of a relic weapon? Lu Li remembered something. The deaf Taoist's stone column was too long. It was not easy to wield it in the cave. The deaf Taoist thought of the same thing. He nodded and Lu Li gave the sawtooth saber to the deaf Taoist. Using divine energy to take control of relic weapons and armors was fast. In the past, it would take Lu Li several months to take control of a relic armor. This time, it only took him half a day. Buzzing, Lu Li's body glowed as a silver armor appeared. Together with his white skin, he looked awe-inspiring. Lu Li took out another saber. This saber was thick and heavy, and the lines were not to Lu Li's liking. That being said, the other weapons were not suitable for him. Lu Li decided to take control of this one. After a day or two, Lu Li and the deaf Taoist had both taken control of the weapons. Their abilities were enhanced again. Right, the interspatial rings. Lu Li remembered the 5's interspatial rings. He wondered if there were more relic weapons, armors, or skills. He took out the 5's interspatial rings and took a look. Lu Li's pupils contracted. He was overjoyed. There were not many relic weapons and armors in the 5's interspatial rings, only 2. There were not many skills either. There was only 1 sheepskin scroll. What surprised Lu Li was spring gold. There was a large amount of spring gold in the 5's interspatial rings, over 1,000 pieces in total. Lu Li only had to hand in 10 pieces every month and he could only get over 100 pieces in a year. Now, he had over 1,000 pieces of spring gold. That was to say, from now on, he didn't have to dig for spring gold anymore. He could just hand in the required amount every month. Let's go back. Without any hesitation, Lu Li decided to go back to the Valley of Vicissitudes because it was absolutely safe there. Who dared to start a fight in the Valley of Vicissitudes? Not even prefecture warriors could give him trouble for no reason. He just had to cultivate in the castle and wait for a year to pass. Then, he would be qualified as a prefecture citizen and could leave the Valley of Vicissitude. Lu Li told the deaf Taoist about the situation. The latter agreed. There were over 10,000 slaves in the Valley of Vicissitude. The immortal's body was powerful. However, if the bird-eyed prefecture warrior sent more powerful immortals, or even dozens of immortals, Lu Li could be killed. Here is 100 pieces of spring gold. Consume them all. Lu Li gave the deaf Taoist 100 pieces of spring gold. The latter was overjoyed. After refining these 100 pieces of azure sun gold, his battle prowess would probably increase by a large margin. Take care of Little White. Lu Li gave all the divine sources to the deaf Taoist and led him into the wicked bead. Then, he rushed out of the mine. He had encountered many slaves along the way. Lu Li had been on guard in case he was assassinated. Luckily, nobody tried to harm him. He returned to the castle in the Valley of Vicissitudes safely and activated the inhibition formation to cultivate. You are back. Not long after Lu Li came back, bird-eyed Li Chong received the news. Li Chong pulled a long face. If Lu Li never went down the mine, Li Chong would have a headache. Chapter 12:20. Luli had indeed given Li Chang a headache. Luli had been in seclusion in the castle, and never stepped out of the castle. He would only go out to hand in the spring sun gold once the month was up. After handing in the spring sun gold, Luli returned to the castle and didn't step out. Li Chang could secretly hire many god spirit slaves in the Valley of Vicissitudes, but Luli didn't go into the mine. He couldn't possibly find someone to kill his way into the castle, right? By then, the people he mobilized would all die, and he would probably be finished as well. How many people did you kill? How much spring sun gold did you get? On the third month, when Luli handed in the spring sun gold, Suzishi followed him into Luli's room and asked curiously. Luli didn't step out for 2 months, but he was able to hand in the spring sun gold so easily. It meant that he must have obtained plenty of spring sun gold. The only way to obtain so much spring sun gold so easily was to kill and seize the treasure. Luli didn't answer Suzishi's question and asked, "Why? Are you lacking spring sun gold? If so, I can give you some." "No need." Suzishi let out a leisurely laugh, and his face was filled with evil charm. His hand flashed with radiance, and countless spring sun gold appeared in his hand. He grinned and said, "A few idiots had designs on me, and I killed them. I got a few hundred spring sun gold, which is enough for the mission." Luli was slightly astonished. He didn't expect Suzishi to have such powerful combat strength despite looking so frail and small. However, when he recalled that Suzishi's great-grandfather was the town elder of the prefecture, he should have imparted plenty of good stuff to Suzishi. It was understandable that Suzishi's combat strength was so strong. Luli nodded and said, "I also killed a few idiots and obtained the spring sun gold needed for this year. I might as well cultivate in seclusion in the castle." "Impressive." Suzishi gave a thumbs up and muttered for a moment before saying, "The men sent by my great-grandfather are already on the move. I reckon that I will leave this place in 2 months. I don't know when I will be able to meet Brother Li again." "There will always be a chance." Luli pursed his lips and smiled. "Who knows, we might have a chance to fight side by side and kill the enemy. If we can meet again next time, let's drink and chat happily." "All right, it's a promise." Suzishi extended his hand and shook Luli's hand tightly before he stood up and bade farewell. Luli continued his seclusion. During this period of time, he had been comprehending the 3rd rank of the Stoneman Divine Sculpture Art, and there were already initial results. He reckoned that he would be able to completely comprehend it in less than 2 months. The 3rd stage of the Divine Stoneman Puppet technique could create many stoneman puppets with combat power comparable to deities. However, these puppets should not be too strong. Fortunately, he could condense many of them, which would be of some use. Time passed quickly, and 2 months had passed peacefully. Luli originally thought that the next few months would be spent leisurely, but he didn't expect something big to happen. The room's restriction was radiating with light. When Luli opened the door and saw Suzishi, he frowned and asked, "Are you leaving?" "No," Suzishi smiled bitterly and said, "Blue Flame Manor is in great trouble right now. The Abyss Devils have invaded the manor, and many martial practitioners have been devilized. My grandfather's men were killed on the way here. I don't think they will be able to come back anytime soon." "Demon?" The scene of Sha Di killing the devil appeared in Lu Li's mind as he asked with bewilderment, "The devil can enter the divine world? Or are there devils lurking in the divine world itself?" "There are no devils lurking in the divine world. Once they appear, the experts will be dispatched to kill them." Suzishi explained, "This time, there was a disturbance in the spatial zone. A few devils infiltrated the divine world, but they were quickly killed. The experts of the divine world will not allow the devils to do as they please." "Oh, that's good." Hearing that the devils were killed, Luli didn't take it to heart. This had nothing to do with him. Unexpectedly, Suzishi waved his hand and said, "Let's go." Commander Yi is gathering us at the plaza. The nearby sects have been demonized by the devils. Commander Yi wants to gather everyone to eliminate the demon envoys. Us? Luli was astonished and asked with bewilderment, Blue Flame Manor has so many experts. Why is he asking us to go? We are not from Blue Flame Manor. Logically speaking, we don't have to do anything. She looked confused as well. He said, Blue Flame Manor does have a lot of prefecture army. Moreover, there are many experts from the nearby sections. I don't know the reason, but Commander Yi has given the order. We have to go. Let's go. There's a conspiracy. Luli instinctively became alert. They were only serving here, which meant that they were working for Blue Flame Manor. However, they were free to do anything. Blue Flame Manor had no right to order them to do anything. Moreover, most of the divine spirits weren't strong. Although there were more than 10,000 of them, they were not as strong as a few hundred prefecture army. Why would Blue Flame Manor send them to eliminate the demon envoys? There must be something fishy going on. Could it be the triangular-eyed prefecture army's conspiracy? Luli's eyes flickered as he followed Shi out. There were already thousands of people gathered at the plaza. Countless divine spirits were also gathering at the plaza. The few hundred prefecture army of Blue Flame Manor were all gathered at the plaza. Commander Yi was right there, waiting for everyone to gather. Luli followed Shi and walked towards the crowd. He glanced at the prefecture army standing at the plaza. When he saw the triangular-eyed prefecture army, his heart sank immediately. The triangular-eyed prefecture army's gaze just happened to sweep over. Although it looked casual, Luli could still feel the coldness in his eyes. Luli's mind started spinning. The demon envoys entering the divine realm definitely had nothing to do with the triangular-eyed prefecture army. He didn't have that much power either. However, Commander Yi mobilizing the laborers of Blue Flame Manor definitely had something to do with this triangular-eyed prefecture army. The triangular-eyed prefecture army wanted to use this opportunity to lure him out of Blue Flame Valley. Then, he would find a chance to capture or kill him alive. What's wrong, Li? Lilu? She noticed Luli's awful expression and asked with concern. It's nothing. Luli waved his hand and pretended to be relaxed. He thought, was Yen Tiangang waiting outside? What if he coincidentally passed by and killed him? Time passed by slowly. More and more people gathered at the plaza. Commander Yi waved his hand at the prefecture army. Rays of light shone from the prefecture army's hands. Then, void beasts expanded and floated in the air. Everyone, listen up. Commander Ye's cold voice rang out. A few days ago, a few demons descended. Although Blue Flame Manor had sent out a few experts to kill the demons, a dozen small sects nearby had been demonized. As a member of Blue Flame Manor, it is my duty to share the Manor Lord's burden. That is why I have gathered everyone to eliminate the demon envoys. Of course, I won't let you work for nothing. Those who go will be exempted from years of labor. We will be the main force. All you need to do is to guard the perimeter and prevent the demon envoys from escaping. If you don't want to go... Commander Ye's threat was obvious. As the commander of Blue Flame Manor, no one dared to raise an objection. Of course, there was no good in offending Commander Yi. Split up and enter the void beasts. The prefecture army spread out and commanded everyone. The triangular-eyed happened to come to Luli's side. He pointed his blue spear at everyone and shouted, "Hurry up! Otherwise, the demon envoys will escape. It will be even more troublesome to eliminate them in the future." Luli wanted to say that he didn't want to go, but his heart sank when he saw the triangular-eyed pointing his spear at him. If he said that he didn't want to go and the triangular-eyed prefecture army took the opportunity to kill him, Commander Yi wouldn't say anything even if he didn't like it. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.